welcome to this session. This is Unit 9 and 10 today. As the classes were discontinued due to some reasons, today we are going to have the Unit 9 and Unit 10. Already we have covered all your 6 days, your 4 days, 8 units. Now it is 9 and 10 today. And today we are going to have your organizations and institutions. Then your unit 10 will be having your status and role today. And I hope that you will be having a thorough understanding of your sociology as a whole. This is your introduction of sociology classes. And today in this year unit, in unit 9, we are going to cover or will be able to understand the meaning of institutions and organizations, and to understand the difference between institutions and organizations. This unit 9 will give you details about institutional organizations. Then we can identify different kinds of organizations and institutions presently structuring society. Then we'll understand perspective on organizations. Then we'll be able to understand different types of organizations and to understand organizational behavior. So first of all, we should know what is institutions all about, what is organization is all about. These are two important concepts in your sociology that play interdependently. So for the smooth running of a society, एक सुस्थ सामाजिक जीवन पाए अनुष्ठान मानकर भूमिका बहुत गुरुत्वपूर्ण एवं ए अनुष्ठान माननकु नै पुणे other organizations they are your playing in the society so as to fulfill so many your basic needs. So let's see uh, what is there in this your unit 9. This unit looks at institutions and organizations as units of society. It highlights the relationship between society, institutions, and organizations. It further examines in details what is meant by institutions, organizations, and organizational behavior. The main your what is that? The contents of this your unit is institutions, organizations, and organizational behavior in unit 9. What is institutions and how the organizations are functioning, and what is organizational behavior in the society. So it also captures the various sociological perspective on the idea, institutions, and organizations and their relationship with the society. Let's see what is institutions and how it works in a society so as to satisfy all the needs, uh, how we maintain the thorough discipline by going through the institutional behavior. Society is made up of individuals and collectives and sum total of all the relationships that exist between them. That is your society. However, society needs to order itself through organizing its various constituents. One of the way in which society orders itself is through institutions and organizations. Through institutions and organizations, it orders itself. Institutions and organizations provide the society a fair amount of consistency and predictability, which is essential for the stability of the society. So, institutions and organizations are very much needed so as for your stability and your the consistency and predictability of the society. Institutions प्रथम आम देखा जे institutions बोले कौन अनुष्ठान बोले कौन आमे जदि आमे रफली जतले आमे बुझुछु काहाकू आमे कहबे जे अनुष्ठान बोले कौन तो आमे साधारणतः लोके रफली शिक्षानुष्ठान धार्मिक अनुष्ठान एमती अनेक अनुष्ठान गुड़ा कहबे जार meaningfully that is not correct. In fact, institutions means it is a set of rules, regulations, norms, values. यार एक समाहार होची institutions. So institutions are set of rules that structure social interaction. जे कि हमारा social interactions को structure करूची सही set of rules को हमें कहूचु institutions. Institutions can be understood as code of conduct. I underline करची. It is code of conduct or set of rules and guidelines for human activity. आमे जेहेतु एक सामाजिक जीव आमर आवश्यकता पशु मान आवश्यकता सहित अनेक मात्रा समान किंतु आमे आमर आवश्यकता गुड़ी को आमे पशु मान भलिया करूछु कि नो rather we are satisfying all our needs, we are satisfying all our whatever the wants we have with a through your rules and regulations. We are disciplined enough while satisfying all those needs এবং এই গাইডলাইন্স প্রোভাইড করছে কে and we are getting all these guidelines by these institutions. So institutions are the set of rules and guidelines for human activity. All the activities are regulated, controlled by these your institutions. ସେଥିପାଇଁ we can be said that we are social. Then institutions structure human interactions through stated or implied rules that set expectations. Some examples of institutions are law, education, marriage, and family. Suppose my beginning, family and marriage, both are institutions. Means uh, they they used to have some guidelines, set of rules, so as to satisfy some of the needs. ଯେମିତି କି ବଂଶ ବିସ୍ତାର କରିବା ଏକ ଆବଶ୍ୟକତା ସେ ବଂଶ ବିସ୍ତାରକୁ ଆମେ କଣ ପଶୁମାନଙ୍କ ଭଳିଆ କରୁଛୁ କି କୀଟପତଙ୍ଗ ଭଳିଆ କରୁଛୁ କି नो रादर a particular biological need को ଆମେ पूरा କରୁଛୁ going through certain norms certain rules and regulations set of rules through ଆମେ ତାକୁ ଆମେ पूरा पूरी କରୁଛୁ ଏବଂ ସେଇଗୁଡାକ that particular norms and set of rules are provided by the institution that is called your marriage. So again, what is organizations? Organizations are specific type of institutions with more clearly defined and stated boundary that separate members from non-members. संगठन गुड़ी को आम देखा संगठित आम बहुत विषय संगठित आम एक डिफाइंड एक इंस्टीट्यूशनल सेट ऑफ रूल्स रे आम डिफाइंड होचु that we are organized and we are working in an organization. So organizations are specific types of institutions with more clearly defined and stated boundary that separate members from non-members. Organizations are singular in that they are characterized by its members being tied in a chain of command. In an organizations, all the your members involved in that particular organizations are set in a particular order of command. Organizations clearly demarcate the responsibilities, authority, and spheres of influence. They also arrange their members in a hierarchy of roles with a sovereign in charge. Some examples of organizations are trade unions, schools, and courts. These are all organizations. And all the members are tied in a chain of hierarchy and command, and thus an organization's functions. Suppose if you consider the example of education as an institution and school as an example of organization. So education is an institution, whereas school is an organization. Every known society formulates some ways in which it trains and cultivates the faculties of its young ones, constructs new knowledge, and transmits the existing knowledge. In doing so, it organizes human interactions and human activity within the society. Education becomes a way in which the young are made to understand their roles, expectations, and duties as member of the society. So, institutions गुड़ाकर या टू वे काम करता है समाज रे ए अनुष्ठान गुड़िक एक एक तो ए माने जेतकी हमर बेसिक हमर आवश्यकता गुड़क रही जो मौलिक आवश्यकता गुड़िक रही ताकू पूरा पूरी करबा पय चेष्टा करथांती बाय प्रोवाइडिंग सम सेट्स ऑफ रूल्स एंड ऑल दैट एवं अन्य पक्षरे यह एक सोशल कंट्रोल मेजर्स हिसाब काम करथांती समान एक हमर व्यवहार को नियंत्रित करबा एवं आवश्यकता को पूर्ण करबा थ्रू योर सेट्स ऑफ रूल्स दैट इज योर इंस्टीट्यूशंस एवं एटा कोट हिता है that is your carried out in your organizations. All societies, whether your primitive ko or modern society ko have devised some or the other way of transmission of knowledge, values and skills among their young members. And these objectives can be fulfilled through various means such as apprenticeship, gurukuls, or mentorship and training. Now, let's see the details what each institutions is all about. देन आम ऑर्गेनाइजेशन को जीवा ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल बिहेवियर को जीवा इंस्टीट्यूशंस को प्रथम हमको बुझवा जरूरी कारण आम मन रे गोटे धारणा था इंस्टीट्यूशंस बोले स्कूल इंस्टीट्यूशंस बोले ये सेमता नुहे नॉट लाइक दैट रादर अनुष्ठान बोले इट इज ए बंडल ऑफ रूल्स रेगुलेशंस इट इज ए सेट ऑफ योर रूल्स जहाँ कि हमको आमर एक्टिविटीज को यह कंट्रोल करता है यह गाइडलाइन हिसाब से काम करता है सो एज टू फुलफिल सम ऑफ द नीड्स दैट we require in our day-to-day life. So, what is institutions? Institutions are components of the society that help to maintain order and stability through structuring human interactions. In fact, the main your functions of your institution is so as to structure the human interactions and activity. Institutions manifest themselves in terms of overt or implicit rules that structure human interactions. Institutions functions through the members of a society being socialized into them. हमको छोट दिन इंस्टीट्यूशनल रूल्स इंस्टीट्यूशनल कोड ऑफ कंडक्ट यहाँ को हमको इंटरनलाइज कराई था हमको सामाजिकीकरण माध्यम रे परिवार तापरे पीयर ग्रुप्स तापरे डिफरेंट इंस्टीट्यूशंस से माने आम भीतर इंटरनलाइज करथांती से नॉर्म्स एवं वैल्यूज गुडा को से सोसाइटल रूल्स गुडा को एवं जहाँ को माने कि आमे हमरो डिफरेंट एक्टिविटीज को रूप रेख देई थाउ बा सही हिसाब रे आमे हमरो डे टू डे जो आवश्यकता गुडी को आमे पूरा पूरी करिया पई चेष्टा करिथाउ. This makes the study of institutions critical to the field of sociology. Emile Durkheim referred to sociology as a scientific study of principle of institutions. Institutions such as religion, family, education, etc. are still critical to the discipline of sociology. Let's see the different your definitions by different your sociologists on your institutions. According to Ginsberg, institutions are definite and sanctioned forms or modes of relationship between social beings in respect to one another or to some external objects. It means the institutions they use to provide some sets of rules, the guidelines to its your members of a particular society, so as to your order the social activity, so as to fulfill some of the needs that they require. Again, if you see the definition of your MacIver, then according to him, institutions established it is an established form or conditions or of procedures characteristic of group activity. Group activity ପାଇଁ जो procedure ରହିଛି जो conditions गुड़ा କରିଛି those are your institutions. Again, Summer suggests that an institution consists of a concept, idea, notion, doctrine, or interest and instruction. So, আমরা পরীক্ষায় আসে your short questions here আসে define institution, what is the role of the institutions, function, dysfunction, এসবগুলো আসে related to your institutions. Again, every institution centers around a fundamental need, permanently unites a group of people in a co-operational task and has its particular body of doctrines and its technique or craft. Institutions are not correlated simply and directly to a new functions. One need not receive one satisfaction in one institution. So, in the society, so as to fulfill so many variety your what is that needs, we used to depend on different institutions. Different institutions, your providers, different sets of rules, different sets of your guidelines, code of conduct, so as to fulfill different needs in different times. According to Turner, he defines institutions as a complex of positions, roles, norms, and values lodged in a particular type of social structure and organizing relatively stable patterns of human activity with respect to fundamental problems in producing life-sustaining resources, in reproducing individuals, and in sustaining viable social structure within a given environment. हमें जो different activity को देखिबा हमर social activities, your eco activities, political activities, we used to have different institutions for that purposes. And all those institutions for your political activities, there are your political institutions. For your eco activities, you are having your eco institutions. So these institutions they used to provide different sets of your guidelines, sets of rules, so as to fulfill all those your needs. Then, if we see all these definitions, that we learn that institutions may not be physical entities but visible in the coordinated patterns of behavior of members of a society. We cannot see your institutions, but we can it can be visible in the your behavior pattern of the members of a society, how they are organized, how they are regulated by all these institutions that can be visible, though we cannot see the institutions as a whole. Again, institutions can help explain the behavior of individual members. Then institutions have both restrictive and enabling potential in that it both constrains the choices available to an individual and defines the way in which choices are to be exercised. आगु मुझे जस्ट ये कहूली जे अनुष्ठान गुड़िक टू वे ए काम करते एक तो they are fulfilling all your needs that we want in life. Again, they are also what is that, working as a measure of social control. They are controlling our behavior pattern, all the activities, while fulfilling all these needs in the society. Suppose consider a situation whereby two individuals decide to live together. The institutions of marriage both defines and constrains the way in which they exercise their desire to live with each other. आमे एबे जस्ट टिके आगु कहतली वंश विस्तार का आवश्यकता तो है हेबो केमितिया फॉर दैट वी आर गेटिंग सैंक्शन फ्रॉम द इंस्टीट्यूशंस ऑफ मैरिज. इंस्टीट्यूशंस ऑफ मैरिज हमको गाइडलाइन प्रोवाइड्स करूची एवं ऑल द योर रिस्पांसिबिलिटी दैट वी आर हैविंग आफ्टर मैरिज हाउ टू रियर द अपब्रिंगिंग जो अपब्रिंगिंग केमती हेबो समानकर को केमती सोशलाइजेशन हेबो से ता बाद रे मध्ये ता संबंध रे मध्ये से हमको अनेक गुडे गाइडलाइन एवं सेट ऑफ रूल्स प्रोवाइड करूची. So they are working in a two way. In one way, they are just satisfying all the needs, and in the secondly, they are also restricting or they are also what is that controlling our behavior pattern in the society. Then institutions can be defined in terms of the regular and consistent patterns of behavior that are structured through norms and sanctions. You know, the institutions are providing us the norms and sanctions. You know what is to be what to do, what not to do. Age insurance provide currently all these institutions. While manifest behaviors may be read as observable from institutions, institutions cannot be reduced merely to associate behavior. For if the associated behavior were to get disrupted, that may not necessarily mean that the institution has ceased to exist. There are no clear boundaries that can be drawn between norms and institutions, but institutions are distinct in that they are consistent and have generalized normative expectations. आमे जो सामाजिक जो नीति नियम गुड़ा को देखुछु जो norms को देखुछु in fact we cannot your differentiate between norms and your institutional your sets of rules. Almost they are same, किंतु केवल गोटे डिफरेंस होची जे जो institutional जो set of rules अछि ताहा गुड़ा consistent एवं एगुड़ा को generalized normative expectations. institutional जो values गुड़ा को अछि institutional sets of rules गुड़ा को जो अछि जहाँ के consistent अटे society and almost all your the members of the society they are abided by all these rules and regulations while fulfilling all the needs. These normative social expectations are seen as obligatory and are supplemented by strong sanctions against aberrations. For example, the biological fact of reproduction has been institutionalized into marriage and family institutions. Human reproduction outside of the sanctioned institutions of marriage and family would receive general discouragement and in some cases a strong backlash. Might have been the society re ame amara needs ko pura puri korchu through this all these institutional sets of rules. Whatever whether that is your biological need, eco activity, political activity, all your social activities jaha bhi kichi achi all those are regulated, controlled by these sets of rules that is called your institutions. So as for your productions that we are having your institutions of your marriage. So for your political activities, we have some other your political institutions. So for your eco activities, we have some other your eco institutions. For your what the religious activities, that is your social activities. That's your religious institutions are there, providing sets of rules, regulations, providing your norms, a bundle of your what is that expected your behavior pattern. Human reproductions are wrong. That is already discussed. So, therefore, institutions seeks to assign and define the social roles that members of a particular society must fulfill and adhere to. The institutions पूरा एक विधिबद्ध भावे गोटे मेंबर एक सदस्य एक समाज एक सदस्य को भलिया रोल प्ले करिवो ता पई मार्गदर्शिका सृष्टि करि थाए एवं समाज एक्सपेक्ट करे मेंबर माननकटू जे सेमाने सही प्रकार एक रोल सेमाने प्ले करिवे इन द सोसाइटी बाय गोइंग थ्रू द इंस्टीट्यूशंस. तो अनुष्ठान गुडी को हमको एक्सपेक्टेड योर रोल एक्सपेक्टेड बिहेवियर पैटर्न केमितिया हेबो तार से सही हिसाब से हमको बाटो देखाई थाए. देन फॉर इंस्टेंस द इंस्टीट्यूशंस ऑफ फैमिली expects a heterosexual man to adopt certain roles and responsibilities, and the heterosexual woman to adopt other roles and responsibilities. ଯେମିତିଆ ବିବାହିକ ଅନୁଷ୍ଠାନ ସେ ଆମକୁ ଗାଇଡ୍ କରୁଛି so as to fulfill the needs. Then again, the family as an institutions ମଧ୍ୟ ସେ ମଧ୍ୟ set of rules, regulations, bundles of your rules and regulations ସେ ସୃଷ୍ଟି କରିଛି ଯେ କାହାର ରୋଲ୍ ଟା କେମିତିଆ ହେବ, କାହାର ଏକ୍ସପେକ୍ଟେଡ୍ ବିହେଭିୟର କେମିତିଆ ହେବ, ଓମେନ୍ ର କେମିତି ହେବ, ମେନ୍ ର କେମିତି ହେବ, ଅଦର ମେମ୍ବର୍ସଙ୍କର କେମିତି ହେବ, ପୁରା ତା ପାଇଁ ଏକ ପୁରା ବିଧିବଦ୍ଧ ଭାବେ ଏକ ଲେଖାଜୋଖା ଏକ sets of rules ରହୁଛି. Then the children in a family also have socially defined roles and responsibilities. And however, such delineations of roles and responsibilities is not final and absolute. The institutions of family has been attacked for its assumptions about roles of men and women or sexuality and division of labor. Of course, ଆମେ ଏଇଟା ବି ମନେ ରଖିବା କଥା ଯେ ଇନଷ୍ଟିଟ୍ୟୁସନାଲ ଯୋଉ ଗାଇଡଲାଇନ୍ସ ଗୁଡାକ ଅଛି ତାହା ସାମାଜିକ ପରିବର୍ତ୍ତନ ସାଙ୍ଗକୁ ଏଥିରେ କିଛିଟା ପରିବର୍ତ୍ତନ ମଧ୍ୟ ଆସିଥାଏ. ଆମେ କହିପାରିବେ ନାହିଁ ଯେ ଇନଷ୍ଟିଟ୍ୟୁସନାଲ ଯୋଉ ସେଟ୍ସ ଅଫ ଯୋଉ ରୁଲ୍ସ ଅଛି ବା ଯୋଉ ଗାଇଡଲାଇନ୍ସ ଅଛି ଏହା ସବୁବେଳେ ତାହା ସମାନ ଏବଂ ଏହା ସବୁଦିନ ଅପରିବର୍ତ୍ତିତ ରହିବ, ଏହା ଭୁଲ. ଏହା ସାମାଜିକ ପରିବର୍ତ୍ତନ ସାଙ୍ଗକୁ ନିଡ୍ସ ଅନୁସାରେ ଏଗୁଡାକ ଚେଞ୍ଜ ହୋଇଥାଏ. Institutions functions well in so far as they maintain stable patterns of expectations, thought, and action. The consistency and synchronizations among these elements determine the stability of the institution. It is often argued that institutions have equilibrium-like qualities in that when disturbed, institutions reinstate their stability by reinforcing order at purpose or preference. ଆମେ ଦେଖିବା ଯେ ଏକ ସୁସ୍ଥ ସାମାଜିକ ଜୀବନ ସମ୍ଭବ ହେଉଛି କେମିତିଆ, and it is all due to your positive functions of these institutions. They are in case ଯଦି କୋଉଠି ଡିଷ୍ଟର୍ବ ହେଇଗଲା ଏମାନେ ଇନଷ୍ଟିଟ୍ୟୁସନ ରିଇନଷ୍ଟେଟ୍ କରୁଛନ୍ତି, ତାଙ୍କର ଷ୍ଟେବିଲିଟି କୁ ପୁଣି ଆଣୁଛନ୍ତି by reinforcing orders as purpose or preference. They are playing a dimension, what is that, multi-dimensional role just to bring stability. So sociologists consider institutions not singularly as stable static phenomena but as process. ଏବେ ଜଷ୍ଟ ଟିକେ ଆଗରୁ କହୁଥିଲି ଯେ ଆମେ ଯୋଉ ଆନୁଷ୍ଠାନିକ ଯୋଉ ନୀତି ନିୟମ ଗୁଡାକ ଆମେ ଦେଖୁଛୁ ସମାଜ ସାମାଜିକ ଜୀବନରେ ଯାହା ଆମେ ଅନୁଭବ କରୁଛୁ, ଯାହା ଯୋଉ ଯୋଉ ନୀତି ନିୟମ ଆମର ବିହେଭିୟର ପ୍ୟାଟର୍ନ ରେ ପରିପ୍ରକାଶ ପାଉଛି ସେଗୁଡିକ those are all not as static. ସାମାଜିକ ନିୟମ ନୀତି ନିୟମ ଗୁଡିକ ଆନୁଷ୍ଠାନିକ ନୀତି ନିୟମ ଗୁଡିକ ଅପରିବର୍ତ୍ତିତ ନୁହନ୍ତି, ଏମାନେ ପରିବର୍ତ୍ତନ ତାଙ୍କର ରହିଛି ଇନ୍ ଦ ପ୍ରୋସେସ. ସାମାଜିକ ପରିବର୍ତ୍ତନ ସାଙ୍ଗକୁ ଅନେକ ଗୁଡିଏ ଜିନିଷ ଆମର ଚେଞ୍ଜ ହଉଛି. Institutions have been understood in terms of the processes of institutionalization, deinstitutionalization, and reinstitutionalization. They are generally considered as the more enduring features of social life. Then, let's see the purpose of institutions. Human beings seek to supplement their institutional world with cultural world. Your Arnold Galland, he suggests that this feeling of incompleteness and the attempt to supplement explains the emergence of institutions. ଆମର ଯୋଉ ଇନଷ୍ଟିଙ୍କ୍ଟ ଗୁଡାକ ଅଛି, ଏକ ମଣିଷ ମାନଙ୍କର ଯୋଉ ପ୍ରବୃତ୍ତି ଅଛି, ଯୋଉ ପ୍ରକୃତି ଅଛି, ଏଇ ଜିନିଷ ଗୁଡାକ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ ଆମର ଇମିଡିଏଟ ହ୍ୟୁମାନ ଏନଭାୟରନମେଣ୍ଟରେ ସେଇ ଇନଷ୍ଟିଟ୍ୟୁସନାଲ ୱାଣ୍ଟ ପୁରା କରିବାକୁ ଚାହୁଁଛୁ, ସେହି ସମୟରେ ଏକ ବହୁତ ବଡ ଭୂମିକା ନିର୍ବାହ କରୁଛି ଅନୁଷ୍ଠାନ ଗୁଡାକ ନିର୍ବାହ କରୁଛନ୍ତି. କାରଣ ସେମାନେ through their bundles of rules and regulations, sets of rules, they are controlling our behavior pattern while fulfilling all those your institutional your ଆମର instinct ଦ୍ୱାରା ଯୋଉ control ଯୋଉ needs ଗୁଡାକ ଆମେ ପୁରା କରୁଛୁ, ସେହି ସମୟରେ ଏମାନଙ୍କର ବହୁତ ବଡ ଏକ ଫଙ୍କସନ ରହୁଛି ଇନଷ୍ଟିଟ୍ୟୁସନ୍ସ ମାନଙ୍କର. Institutions make human life meaningful through connecting human beings to their natural environment with the help of intermediate social relationship and symbolic constructs. ଏହା ହେଉଛି ତାର ଇମ୍ପୋର୍ଟାଣ୍ଟ ରୋଲ. ଏହା ଆପଣଙ୍କୁ ପଢିବାକୁ ପଡିବ, ଆପଣମାନେ ପଢିଲେ ଯାଇ ଏହାର ଡିଟେଲ୍ସଟାକୁ ଆପଣ ଜାଣିପାରିବେ. But it is necessary that you should go through all your what is that the study materials. Now we'll see the types of institutions. ଆମ ସମାଜରେ କେତେ ପ୍ରକାର ଇନଷ୍ଟିଟ୍ୟୁସନ ଆମେ ଦେଖୁଛୁ. ମୁଁ ଜଷ୍ଟ ଟିକେ ଆଗରୁ କହୁଥିଲି ଯେ ଆମର ଆବଶ୍ୟକତା ଅନୁସାରେ ଆମର ଅର୍ଥନୈତିକ ଆବଶ୍ୟକତା ଅଛି, ରାଜନୈତିକ ଆବଶ୍ୟକତା ଅଛି, ସାମାଜିକ ଆବଶ୍ୟକତା ଅଛି। ତ ଏଇ ସବୁ ଆବଶ୍ୟକତା ଗୁଡିକୁ ପୁରାପୁରି କରିଲା ବେଳକୁ definitely we are uh, we are depending on different institutions related to that your sphere. For your eco activities, you are depending on your economic institutions. For political activities, ଆମେ depend କରୁଛୁ political institutions ମାନଙ୍କ ସହିତ। social activities ପାଇଁ social institutions ମାନଙ୍କ ଉପରେ ଆମେ ନିର୍ଭର କରୁଛୁ। So there are so many your institutions here playing their different multidimensional role so as to satisfy different needs in the society. Sociologists generally classify institutions into five clusters of major institutions. ଆମେ କୋଉଟା ଏଗୁଡିକ ଆମକୁ ଦେଖିବାକୁ ପଡିବ। ଇକୋନୋମିକ ଇନଷ୍ଟିଟ୍ୟୁସନ୍ସ, ଆମର ଅର୍ଥନୈତିକ ଆବଶ୍ୟକତା ଅଛି ଏବଂ ସେ ଅର୍ଥନୈତିକ ଆବଶ୍ୟକତା ଗୁଡିକୁ ପୁରାପୁରି କଲା ବେଳକୁ ଡେଫିନେଟଲି ଆମେ ଇକୋ ଇନଷ୍ଟିଟ୍ୟୁସନ୍ସ ମାନଙ୍କ ଉପରେ ଆମେ ଡିପେଣ୍ଡ କରୁଛୁ। କେମିତିଆ ଇକୋନୋମିକ ଇନଷ୍ଟିଟ୍ୟୁସନ କଣ? These are the institutions that correspond to production, consumption and distributions of goods and services. এই ଇନଷ୍ଟିଟ୍ୟୁସନ୍ସ ଗୁଡାକ ଆମର ପ୍ରଡକ୍ସନ୍ସ କେମିତି ହବ, ସେ ପ୍ରଡକ୍ସନ୍ସ ଯୋଉ ହେଲା ତାକୁ ଆମେ କନଜ୍ୟୁମ କେମିତି କରିବେ ଏବଂ ଯାହା ବଳିଗଲା ତାର ଡିଷ୍ଟ୍ରିବ୍ୟୁସନ୍ସ କେମିତି ହବ, ଏହା ଉପରେ ଡିଟେଲ ଏକ ସେଟ୍ସ ଅଫ ରୁଲ୍ସ ରେଗୁଲେସନ୍ସ ନେଇକି ସେମାନେ ବସିଥାନ୍ତି। These are your economic institutions. ତାପରେ institutions of social stratification. These are the institutions that regulate and control differential access to social status and prestige. ଆଉ ଅନେକ ଗୁଡ଼ିଏ ଅନୁଷ୍ଠାନ ଅଛନ୍ତି ଯେଉଁମାନେ କି ଆମର ସାମାଜିକ ଜୀବନରେ ଆମର ପରିସ୍ଥିତି ନିର୍ଦ୍ଧାରିତ କରିଥାନ୍ତି। ସେଇ ପରିସ୍ଥିତି ଅନୁସାରେ ଆମର ରୋଲଟା କେମିତି ତାକୁ ନିର୍ଦ୍ଧାରଣ କରିଥାନ୍ତି ଏବଂ ସମାଜରେ ପରିସ୍ଥିତି ଅନୁସାରେ କୋଉ କୋଉ ପ୍ରକାର ଆମେ ସୁବିଧା ସୁଯୋଗ ପାଇବେ, କୋଉ କୋଉ ଆମେ ଡିପ୍ରାଇଭ୍ଡ ହେବେ, ଆମର ଅଲ୍ ସର୍ଟସ୍ ଅଫ୍ ୟୋର ସୋସିଆଲ ଆକ୍ଟିଭିଟିଜ, ସୋସିଆଲ ଆସ୍ୟୁମିଲେସନ ସବୁ କିଛି ଜିନିଷ ଗୁଡାକ କଣ୍ଟ୍ରୋଲ ହୁଏ ଦିସ୍ ୟୋର ଇନଷ୍ଟିଟ୍ୟୁସନ୍ସ ଅଫ ସୋସିଆଲ ଷ୍ଟ୍ରାଟିଫିକେସନ ମାନଙ୍କ ଦ୍ୱାରା। ତାପରେ ଆଉ ତିନିଟା मेजर इंस्टीट्यूशन जो माने के रोल प्ले करते समाज रे ता होचंते किनशिप, मैरिज एंड फैमिली। दीज आर थ्री योर मेजर इंस्टीट्यूशंस। दीज इंस्टीट्यूशंस कंट्रोल एंड रेगुलेट रिप्रोडक्शन। दीज योर किनशिप, मैरिज एंड फैमिली। हम जस्ट हम टिके आगु करतले वंश विस्तार एक आवश्यकता एवं वंश विस्तार केमिति हबो ता पई एक निर्दिष्ट अनुष्ठान हमको गाइडलाइन प्रोवाइड करूची, दैट इज कॉल्ड मैरिज। विवाह एक अनुष्ठान जे कि हमको प्रोवाइड करूचे किंबा विवाह आफ्टर मैरिज फैमिली एज एन इंस्टीट्यूशंस हमको पुणे हाउ टू सोशलाइज तापर अदर सोशल रेस्पोंसिबिलिटीज मान संबंध रे अनेक गुडे गाइडलाइन प्रोवाइड करूची। तो किनशिप, मैरिज एंड फैमिली, these institutions control and regulate reproduction. तापर political institutions are there, they are concerned with the regulations and distributions of power. एक सामग्रिक विकास पाई, एक सामग्रिक उन्नति पाई, सामाजिक जीवन रे समस्त आवश्यकता के पूरा पूरी पारिबो, समस्त विकास केमिति होई पारिबो, रेगुलेटेड केमिति हेबो फॉर दैट हाउ पावर ता केमिति डिसेंट्रलाइज हेबो, द रोल ऑफ स्टेट एंड योर व्हाट इज दैट गोटे वेलफेयर स्टेट को ड्रीम को केमिति पूरा पूरी करछि, व्हाट इज द रोल ऑफ योर गवर्नमेंट एज एन एजेंट। ये सब डिटेल्स योर इट इज योर पॉलिटिकल इंस्टीट्यूशंस माने गाइडलाइन प्रोवाइड करथांती। देन see the different perspectives on your social institutions. आमे এই जो इंस्टीट्यूशंस गुडा अछि ताको प्रति ता ऊपर विभिन्न विभिन्न दृष्टिकोण संबंध रे हमें ये करिवे। एथिरो हमें इजीली बुझी पारिबे द व्हाट इज द basic your necessity of the institutions. Social institutions are systematic belief and norms that are centered on fulfillment of basic social needs. এটা অনেক থর কই সালেনি যে অনুষ্ঠান বলি কোন these are systematic beliefs and norms. অনেক গুড়ে বিশ্বাস, অনেক গুড়ে প্রথা পরম্পরা, অনেক গুড়ে সামাজিক নীতি নিয়ম এହାର সমাহার a bundle that is an institution যাহাকে that are centered on fulfillment of your basic social needs. এবং আমার অনেক গুড়ে সামাজিক আবশ্যকতা গুড়িକୁ পুরাপুরি করলা যেতলে আমি করুଛୁ সেই সময় এମାନଙ୍କର আবশ্যকতা পড়ুଛି। ଆମେ ଯଦି ଇନଷ୍ଟିଟ୍ୟୁସନାଲାଇଜଡ ନର୍ମସ ବା ଯୋଉ ଗାଇଡଲାଇନ୍ସ ବିନା ଆମେ ଯଦି କୌଣସି ଜିନିଷ ଆମେ କରୁଛେ ତାହେଲେ ତାହା ସେଂସନ ହଉ ନାହିଁ ସାମାଜିକ ଜୀବନରେ ଆମେ ତାକୁ ସେଂସନ କରିପାରିବେ ନାହିଁ। These social needs pertain to replacement of members of the society and preserving order. Social institutions provide insights into the structure of the society. For example, the norms and your beliefs surrounding kinship and incest help understanding the structure of a society. The structure of the society becomes apparent through the constraints that these norms mandate as well as their adaptive features to serve the interest of the members of the society. Social institutions, so सामाजिक अनुष्ठान कहते have been studied by socialists in varied ways. While some perceive social institutions to be critical parts that must function well for the overall society to function well. ଏବଂ ଏକ ସୁସ୍ଥ ସାମାଜିକ ଜୀବନ ପାଇଁ ଆମକୁ ଏଇ ଅନୁଷ୍ଠାନ ଗୁଡ଼ିକର ଭୂମିକା ବହୁତ ଗୁରୁତ୍ୱପୂର୍ଣ୍ଣ ଅଟେ। ଯେତେବେଳେ ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ଏ ଅନୁଷ୍ଠାନ ଗୁଡ଼ିକର ରୋଲ ପଜିଟିଭ ୱେରେ ସେମାନେ ଫଙ୍କସନ୍ସ କରିବେ ନାହିଁ ସେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ ଏକ ଏକ ସୁସ୍ଥ ସାମାଜିକ ଜୀବନ ଯାପନ ଆଶା କରିପାରିବେ ନାହିଁ ବା ଆମେ ପାଇପାରିବେ ନାହିଁ। Then let's see the functionalist perspective. Functionalist perspective highlights the role and service that institutions play with regard to the larger society. So what is the function of a society? Sorry, what is the function of an institution? कौन एक larger society well-being ପାଇଁ कौन सा function କରୁଛି? The functionalist perspective look at institutions as part of a whole that is society. Even email दरखास्त କରୁଛନ୍ତି ଯେ ଏକ systematic studies of institutions is sociology. तो एक बहुत बड़ा roles माने play करते। The value of an institution is understood solely in relation to the service it pays for the overall well-being of the society. Functionalist perspective suggests that social institutions fulfill the needs of the society through 5 ways. ଏବେ ଆମେ ଦେଖିବା ଯେ ଅନୁଷ୍ଠାନ ଗୁଡ଼ିକର ଭୂମିକା ସେମାନେ କୋଉ ହିସାବରେ ଆମର ସାମାଜିକ ଜୀବନରେ ଆମର ଅନେକ ଗୁଡ଼ିଏ ଆବଶ୍ୟକତାକୁ ପୂରାପୂରି କରୁଛନ୍ତି। In the 5 ways, through 5 ways they are your satisfying all the needs. That is number 1, replacement of personnel that the society loses as a result of death caused by aging, disease, war or migration. ଆମର जो ମୁଁ କହୁଥିଲି ବଂଶ ବିସ୍ତାର ଏବଂ ସମାଜରେ ବ୍ୟକ୍ତିଙ୍କୁ ନେଇ ସମାଜ ଗଠିତ। ଯଦି ବ୍ୟକ୍ତି ରହିବେ ନାହିଁ ସମାଜର କୌଣସି ସ୍ଥିତି ନାହିଁ। ତ ସମାଜର ଆକୁ ଆକୁ ଗତିଶୀଳ ହେବା ପାଇଁ ସମାଜ ଗତିଶୀଳ ହେବା ପାଇଁ ବ୍ୟକ୍ତି ବିଶେଷ ମାନଙ୍କର ଆବଶ୍ୟକତା ରହିଛି। ତ ଯେତେବେଳେ ସମାଜରେ ବ୍ୟକ୍ତି ବିଶେଷ ମାନଙ୍କ କ୍ଷୟ ହେଉଛି ଏଇ ନୂଆ ମେମ୍ବର୍ସ ଆମେ ଆସିବେ କେମିତି? ଏଇ ନୂଆ ମେମ୍ବର୍ସ ଆସିବା ପାଇଁ ଇନଷ୍ଟିଟ୍ୟୁସନ୍ସ ଅଫ ମ୍ୟାରେଜ ଇଜ देयर ଯୋଉମାନେ କି ସେକ୍ସନ they are giving that particular sanctions to a man and an woman so as to what is that you can say to establish so as to what is it to create a family. So replacement of personnel that the society loses as a result of death caused by aging, disease, war or migrations, that is your what is that substituted by this your institution that is called marriage. This is done through adding new members by the means of immigrations, annexations or sexual reproductions. Secondly institutional काम कौन? This is your socializations and educations of new members. परिवार माध्यम रे डिफरेंट पीयर ग्रुप मानक माध्यम रे एमानको जो नुआ मेंबर्स जो आइसांती परिवार रे तांकर सामाजिकीकरण करिबा तांको समाज रे केमितिया समाने निजको एडजस्ट करिवे कोप अप करिवे को प्रकार बिहेवियर पैटर्न्स में डिस्प्ले करिवे व्हाइल फुलफिलिंग नीड्स all these are done through your socialization process and that is your done by your different institutions. Then production, circulations and distributions of goods and services among members of the society. Here your what is that needs that is your that is fulfilled by your economic institutions. Then providing an order to day-to-day interactions and governance while simultaneously preserving this order through defending against outside attacks threatening the order of the society with disruptions. ଏହା ମଧ୍ୟ institutions ଏକ ବଡ଼ ଭୂମିକା। ତାପରେ promoting a sense of belongingness and purpose by allowing people to form and reassert allegiance to associations such as religion, culture, language, etc. So these are some of the your basic your functions that are your what is that they used to satisfy through your institutions. Let's see the your conflict your perspectives of your institutions. The conflict perspective agrees with the functionalist perspective in so far as to admit that institutions fulfill basic needs of the society. It is already discussed. However, conflict perspective argues that institutions work to establish hierarchies and perpetuate inequalities. For instance, conflict perspective has stressed how a major institution such as education has worked to privilege the powerful groups within a society. Conflict perspective further stress that institutions work towards maintenance of privilege. Relatedly, country perspective highlights that institutions are both exclusionary and oppressive to those that the institutions disadvantages. It is your conflicting perspective of your the functions of your what is that your institutions. Now we'll see a little bit that your interactionist perspective. What should be the role of an institutions? Interactionist perspective, unlike the former two, functionalist and your country perspective, is interested in the microscopic view of how institutions play out in actual interactions. Actual interactions रे our day to day activities रे a institution का role केमते रहउछि. It seeks to capture patterns of how institutions frame and features in interactions and everyday behaviors. ଆମର everyday जो behaviors रहउछि, जो behavior patterns जाके expected ତାହା କେମିତି ହେବ, that is also guided by your institutions. Interactionist perspective argues that institutions frame our daily interactions and behaviors. ଏମାନେ ଆମର ଦୈନନ୍ଦିନ जो ବ୍ୟବହାରିକ जो ରହିବା କଥା ଜିନିଷ ବା ଇଣ୍ଟରାକ୍ସନ୍ସ କେମିତି ହେବ ତାର ତାକୁ ସେ ଫ୍ରେମ୍ କରିଥାଏ through your guidelines. Our day-to-day interactions and behaviors are conditioned by the roles and statuses that we are accorded, again the groups we are assigned to. So all this is your interaction perspective that in your day-to-day life our behavior pattern केମିତି ହେବ, that is your guided by the institutions. Now let's see what is organizations is all about. Organization ଆମେ ମାନେ ସାମାଜିକ ଜୀବନରେ ଏଇମାନଙ୍କର ସଂସ୍ପର୍ଶରେ ଆମେ ଆସୁଛୁ, ଅନେକ ଗୁଡ଼ିଏ ଅନୁଷ୍ଠାନ, ଅନେକ ଗୁଡ଼ିଏ ସଂଗଠନ, ଅନେକ ଗୁଡ଼ିଏ ଜିନିଷ ଆମେ ଆସୁଛୁ, କିନ୍ତୁ ଏଇମାନଙ୍କୁ ଆମମାନଙ୍କର ତାଙ୍କର ରୋଲ ସେମାନେ କେମିତିଆ ଫଙ୍କସନ କରୁଛନ୍ତି ଫର ଦ ୟର ସ୍ମୁଥ ଫଙ୍କସନିଂ ଅଫ ଦ ସୋସାଇଟି, ଏହା ସମ୍ବନ୍ଧରେ ଆମକୁ ଜାଣିବା ନିହାତି ଜରୁରୀ. ଅର୍ଗାନାଇଜେସନ୍ସ କୁ ଦେଖାଯାଉ. Institutions are not necessarily stated, but they are rather normative expectations that structure interactions between the members of a society. अच्छा, organizations ताले कौन? Organizations on the other hand are formal bodies. These are formal bodies. अपन जानते, these are formal bodies with concrete structures. It is a physical entity with clearly defined boundaries distinguishing members from non-members. So, while institutions are formally unstated, organizations are formally stated bodies. अनुष्ठान एवं संगठन बोले बुझी पारछन्ते. अनुष्ठान गुडी कहते इट इज सेट्स ऑफ गाइडलाइंस एवं यहाँ को आहुरी एई गाइडलाइंस को नेकरी संगठन गुडी का रन करूछन. These are your formally stated bodies. Institutions are socially embedded, consistent and systematic set of rules. Organizations are specially case of institutions that has specific features. Institutions are therefore like the rules of football. हमें गुटे एग्जांपल ले पारे. हमें देखो तो institutions are like the rules of football. They frame the way in which the game has to be played. A good example of organizations in the context of football would be Federation of International किंबा हमें कहबा FIFA or International Federation of Association of Football. इटा होचंती तमरा organizations your part. एवं को हिसाब फुटबॉल खेला हबो या रूल रेगुलेशंस that is institution. You can also consider other examples of organizations such as Indian Postal Services, Indian Coffee House, Kendriya Vidyalaya, all your organization. Organizations, despite differences in type, size, spread, efficiency, and specificity of goals, all the above mentioned organizations work to facilitate large-scale operations. They have clearly stated and defined goals that they pursue and established hierarchy of authority and chain of command. एक संगठन रे chain of commands है, hierarchically different members तांकर role stated है, and they are guided by institutions. So प्रत्येक organization एक निर्दिष्ट एक goal को ସେମାନେ ଯେତେବେଳେ achieve କରିବାକୁ ଯାଆନ୍ତି ସେତେବେଳେ definitely these institutions provide them the sets of rules and regulations. Organizations can also be seen in terms of social actions insofar as the organizations has the ability of making decisions and acting upon at least some of them. एवं वर्तमान जो आधुनिक मॉडर्न सोसाइटीज रे ए ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस मान भूमिका बहुत गुरुत्वपूर्ण एवं एमाने फंक्शंस केमितिया करचंती थ्रू द इंस्टीट्यूशनल तांकर जो सेट्स ऑफ जो रूल्स रेगुलेशंस ताको नेके माने चलुचंती मॉडर्न इंडस्ट्रियल सोसाइटीज are peculiar for their dependence on sophisticated large-scale organizations for ensuring order. The organizations of modern industrial and post-industrial societies are much larger in scale, size, and scope. And it is argued that with increase in specific division of labor, organizations also become more sophisticated. Let's see, defend your what is that perspectives on organizations. There are various perspectives on the nature and working of an organization. भिन्न भिन्न दृष्टिकोण रही regarding the function, regarding the nature of your organizations. This perspective would help us develop a better understanding of what organizations are and how they work. If you see the perspective of your Amitai Adjunini, then he defines organizations as social units that are predominantly oriented to the attainment of specific goals. हमें दे एक organizations like हमें definitions को देखिए by your this your adjuni, then your these are social units that are predominantly oriented to the attainment of specific goal. केते गुडे निर्दिष्ट आवश्यकता बा लक्ष्य को पूरण करिवा पई ए संगठन मानकर भूमिका रही these are social units, those are your oriented to the attainment of these goals. Then these are the some of the following characteristics of organizations. It division of labor, power, responsibilities such as divisions being deliberately planned to achieve certain goals. प्रत्येक संगठन रे एक हायरार्की सृष्टि कराई था, डिवीजन ऑफ लेबर सेठी थाए एवं डेलिबरेटली प्लान कराई था ए डिवीजन ऑफ लेबर को so as to achieve certain goals. The presence of power centers which controls the productivity, monitor its efficiency and repattern structure upon review, and substitutions of personnel, maintaining healthy employee participant pool and others who are transferred and or promoted. ये सब होची एक गुरुत्वपूर्ण जो भूमिका जाके निर्वाह करता है एक संगठन. Then let's see the perspective of Max Weber. Max Weber model of bureaucracy emerges in the broader context of his elaborate theorization on the nature of authority in society. How a organization functions, या केमितिया काम करी था. मैक्स वेबर का मतलब है एक ब्यूरोक्रेटिक एक स्ट्रक्चर एक मेजर रोल प्ले करता है in this your organization. His model of bureaucracy emerges in the broader context of his elaborate theorizations of the nature of authority in society. He highlighted the organizations in the industrial societies were capable of attaining highest degree of efficiency if they were administered in a bureaucratic manner, bureaucratic administration. Yeah, the perspective of your Max Weber regarding your organizations and organizational function. He argued that that was your superior to any other form in precision, in stability, in the stringency of its discipline, and in its reliability. It thus makes possible a particular high degree of calculability of results and is formally capable of applications to all kinds of administrative tasks. This is your perspective of your Max Weber for your organization. Max Weber sketches his ideas about bureaucratic administrations, which stretches to cover all major large-scale organizations of modern industrial societies like business, charitable organizations, religious organizations, and even political parties. So, bureaucratic hierarchy is a must so that the organizations can function properly so as to attain the different specific goals. Max Weber argues that bureaucratic administration is the most efficient way of organizing human resources to attain desired ends. Weber does not understand bureaucracy as carrying inherent risks of too much control of inefficiency. He suggests a number of conditions that bureaucratic administrations espouse that makes them most efficient form of administration. In Weber's conceptualizations of bureaucratic organizations, individuals perform specialized segmental roles over which they have no control. Instead, he suggests that individuals are controlled by the roles they occupy within a bureaucratic administration, which does not allow much scope for rational judgment on the part of the individual. Just they uh, mm, go on working in a particular hierarchy for the attainment of the specific goals. Now let's see the your perspective, your government. According to government, he argued that all the institutions have a similar structure despite differences in personal characteristics of its participants, which is strikingly different from the basic arrangement of normal society. Again, government also suggests that a normal society is characterized by a distinctly defined sphere of work, leisure, and home. People organize their lives in these different areas of life and under different control. This is your perspective, your government. Then let's see the uh, classification of your organization. As we have seen above, organizations have been divided into work organizations and treatment organizations by government and by IGNOU on the basis of power relationship between participants and administrators. They suggest, even your by suggestions by your Blau and your Scott, what they suggest? They suggest the four categories to be the mutual benefit, that is all those who constitute the body of the organizations; business, where prime beneficiary is owners of managers; service, where prime beneficiary are clients or public in contact; and your commonwealth, that is where the prime beneficiary are the larger population. This is your, on the basis of this, the classifications of the organizations has been done. In the your last part of this unit, let's see what is organizational behavior is all about. We have to display some behavior pattern, in the your different organizations, while we are playing different role according to your status in that your in the that in the hierarchy. ଆମେ ଏକ ନିର୍ଦ୍ଦିଷ୍ଟ ଏକ ବ୍ୟୁରୋକ୍ରାଟିକ ହାୟରାର୍କିରେ ଆମେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଏକ ପୋଜିସନ୍ସ ଆମେ ଏକ ପାଉଛୁ, ସେତେବେଳେ we are expected to display some behavior in an organization, and that is called your organizational behavior. People often choose the organizations they want to part of based on a perceived suitability of the organizations to the individual. When people get associated with an organization, it is only expected that their affiliations with the organizations has an impact on their personalities. Also, it is expected that people who are affiliated to the organizations also impact the organization's character. It is important, therefore, to look at the interplay between the individual and the organizations. ଆମେ କୋଉ ପ୍ରକାର behavior pattern display କରୁଛେ while working in an organization. We are associated with the different organizations. We are in different hierarchical position in different organizations in the different year time according to our suitability. And while we are in that particular organizations working or what is that position in a particular your hierarchy, definitely we are displaying a specific behavior pattern associated with this particular hierarchy or the position. Attitudes of members towards the organizations केमती थाए. Attitudes of participants and administrations toward the organizations are crucial elements for this interplay. For example, administrators of a sanatorium are obligated by their role to control and restrict participants upon against their will. They have to ensure that the functioning of the sanatorium is not affected by the oppositions from the inmates. So यहाँ एक एग्जांपल दिया है जे हमको एक निर्दिष्ट एक काम असाइन कराइता इन एन ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस एवं ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस मध्ये हमटू एक्सपेक्ट करे that your behavior pattern that we should display that may not suit the members in a particular your context, but we are supposed to display that your behavior pattern while in that working in that organization. Individuals acquire roles upon their entry into an organization. ଯେତେବେଳେ କୌଣସି ଏକ ବ୍ୟକ୍ତି ଏକ ନିର୍ଦ୍ଦିଷ୍ଟ ଏକ ସଂଗଠନରେ ସେ ଏକ ମେମ୍ବର ହେଉଛି, ତାର ଏଣ୍ଟ୍ରି ହେଉଛି, ତାଠୁ ଏକ ନିର୍ଦ୍ଦିଷ୍ଟ ରୋଲ ଏକ୍ସପେକ୍ଟେସନ୍ସ ରହୁଛି ଏବଂ ଆକର୍ଡିଂ ଟୁ ଦ୍ୟାଟ୍ ରୋଲ ତାଙ୍କଠୁ ଆମେ ଏକ ନିର୍ଦ୍ଦିଷ୍ଟ ବିହେଭିୟର ପ୍ୟାଟର୍ନ ଆମେ ଏକ୍ସପେକ୍ଟ କରୁଛୁ. These roles come with their own role expectations, and these expectations are synchronized in such a manner that it ensures smooth functioning of the organizations. Each role has specific tasks assigned to them and a set of rules that must be followed. Interpersonal relationship between individuals within the organizations is impacted by the roles that they acquire upon entry. For instance, the possibility of an inmate and guard at prison becoming friends rare and unlikely given the antagonism of their roles they acquire upon entry. These elements impact the working of the organization. এবং ଏହି expected role, expected behavior pattern ଯାହାକି ଆମେ ଡିସପ୍ଲେ କରିବା ଉଚିତ ତାହା ଉପରେ ଏକ ସଂଗଠନର ସ୍ମୁଥ ଫଙ୍କସନିଂ ଡିପେଣ୍ଡ କରିଥାଏ. ପ୍ରତ୍ୟେକ ମେମ୍ବର ଯେତେବେଳେ ଏକ ସଂଗଠନ ସହିତ ତାଙ୍କର ଆସୋସିଏସନ ରହୁଛି, ସେମାନେ ସେଥିରେ ସମ୍ମିଳିତ ହେଉଛନ୍ତି ବା ଏକ ନିର୍ଦ୍ଦିଷ୍ଟ ଏକ ପୋଜିସନ ସେମାନେ ଏକ୍ୱାର କରୁଛନ୍ତି, definitely it is expected that they have to play a particular role and a set of behavior pattern ସେମାନେ ଡିସପ୍ଲେ କରିବା ଉଚିତ ଯାହାକି ଅର୍ଗାନାଇଜେସନ୍ସ ର ଫଙ୍କସନିଂ ପାଇଁ ତାହା ସହାୟକ ହେବ. Now we'll see the status and role. ଆମେ ସମାଜରେ ଅନେକ ଗୁଡେ status acquire କରୁଛୁ in different time, in different situation, ଏବଂ according to their status we are playing some role, multi role ଆମେ play କରୁଛୁ according to our statuses. ତ ତାର ଡିଟେଲ ଆମେ ଦେଖିବେ in this your unit 10. We may be able to understand the concept of status and its relation to roles, differentiate between types of status. We may be able to understand the concept of role, then differentiate between the two approaches in understanding roles, then your classifications of roles, then distinctions between the roles in simple and complex societies, and to discuss the different dimensions of roles. This is the unit 10, that is your status and role. Status ଏକ ନିର୍ଦ୍ଦିଷ୍ଟ ପରିସ୍ଥିତି ଏବଂ সেই ପରିସ୍ଥିତି ସହିତ ଜଡ଼ିତ ଥିବା କେତେ ଗୁଡ଼ିଏ ରୋଲ, the expected behavior pattern, the different sorts of your behavior pattern that are associated with particular your role and the status. This unit seeks to introduce us to the concept of status and role, which are important aspect of your social structure of any society. ଆମେ ଯେକୌଣସି ଏକ ସାମାଜିକ ଆମେ ବ୍ୟବସ୍ଥାକୁ ଯିବେ ସେଠି ଆମେ ପାଇବେ that people having different statuses and so many roles attached to that particular statuses. In this unit, it discusses roles in both simple and complex societies and different dimensions of roles such as role set, multiple roles, role signs, and role conflict. Although status and roles has been discussed separately in the unit, the relationship between the two will be drawn recurrently. Let's see the concept of status. यार ओडिया आमे कहबे परिस्थिति एवं भूमिका. एक निर्दिष्ट परिस्थिति रे आमे निर्दिष्ट एक भूमिका आमे ये करूछु. So let's see. Status is a position occupied by a person in the society. आपण माने बोधे सिंपल टर्म रे बुझी पाउते जे परिस्थिति बोले कोन. परिस्थिति होची जे it is a position occupied by a person. The positions केमती से पाउची तार अनेक गुडे क्राइटेरिया अछि. आमे मॉडर्न सोसाइटी रे आमे लोक मानकर परिस्थिति को आमे निर्धारण करूछु अकॉर्डिंग टू देयर वेल्थ, हायर क्लास, मिडिल क्लास, लोअर मिडिल क्लास, पुअर, अकॉर्डिंग टू देयर पोजीशन ऑफ वेल्थ एंड ऑल दैट परिस्थिति निर्धारित होची. आमे जदि भारतीय ग्राम्य जीवन को जिबे, भारतीय सामाजिक जीवन को जिबे, लोक मानकर परिस्थिति निर्धारित होची जन्मरो थ्रू योर कास्ट. According to the caste, they are uh, what is that, enjoying some of the your what is that, rights according to their birth. Some people are deprived because they are given your lower your strata in the society as per their your birth. So status is a position, that is occupied by a person in the society. In a lifetime, an individual occupies different status on the your line of age, gender, class, occupation, and education. ଆମେ ଆମର ଜନ୍ମଠୁ ମୃତ୍ୟୁ ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ଯୋଉ ଆମର ଏକ ଲମ୍ବା ଯୋଉ ଆମର ଇନିଂସ ଅଛି ସେଇଥିରେ ଆମେ ଅନେକ ଗୁଡ଼ିଏ ଷ୍ଟାଟସ୍ ଆମେ ପାଉଛୁ, according to our age, gender, class, occupation, education, এই ହିସାବରେ ଆମେ ଭିନ୍ନ ଭିନ୍ନ ଷ୍ଟାଟସ୍ ଆମେ ପାଉଛୁ ସମାଜରେ ଏବଂ ସେଇ ଷ୍ଟାଟସ୍ ସହିତ ଅନେକ ଗୁଡ଼ିଏ ରୋଲ ଜଡ଼ିତ ଅଛି ଏବଂ according to that your status you are playing the role. A person can have several statuses at a point of time, such as being a doctor, social worker, member of a book reading club, guitarist, and a manager in a company. এবং ଆମେ ଆମର ସାମାଜିକ ଜୀବନରେ ମାର୍କ କରୁଥିବେ ସମସ୍ତେ ଆପଣମାନେ ମଧ୍ୟ ଯେଉଁମାନେ ୱାର୍କିଂ ଓମେନ୍ ଅଛନ୍ତି ସେମାନେ ତ ପୁରା ଅନୁଭବ କରୁଥିବେ ୟୁ ଆର୍ ହ୍ୟାଭିଂ ଡିଫରେଣ୍ଟ ଷ୍ଟାଟସେସ୍। ଆମେ ଘରେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ ଏକ ମଦର ଷ୍ଟାଟସ୍ ଆମର ଅଛି, वी आर प्लेइंग द रोल ऑफ मदर। तापर वर्किंग वुमेन अनुसार आमे सेठी जाई कि आमे कुछ बैंक रे काम करछे, वी आर हैविंग अनदर स्टेटस, अकॉर्डिंग टू द स्टेटस वी आर प्लेइंग अनदर रोल। सो मल्टी स्टेटस मल्टी रोल आमे प्ले करूछु। So a combination of all the statuses that a person holds is called status set। in the your lifetime भितरे आमे अनेक गुडे स्टेटस आमे पाउ पारुछे एवं सेही स्टेटस अनुसार आमे we are getting different roles to be played। Status, it's a collections of rights and duties। आमे देखिबे स्टेटस को आमे डिफाइन करिवे, it is your collections of rights and duties। Each status has certain behavioral expectation एवं according to the status there are some your behavior pattern that is your expected by your members of the society। आपण जदि इन द आपण कलेक्टर स्टेटस आपण को अछि, then definitely आपण को एक्सपेक्ट कराबो दैट बिहेवियर पैटर्न ऑफ ए कलेक्टर। तापर घर को से आउसुनी जते बेले ही इज प्लेइंग द रोल ऑफ व्हाट इज दैट फादर रोल प्ले करचंती, तांकर फैमिली मेंबर्स माने एक्सपेक्ट करचंती द ऑल द बिहेवियर पैटर्न एसोसिएटेड विथ योर फादर। So if you see, then it is a status, each status has certain behavioral expectations attached to it which called social rules। these expected behaviors, the pattern of behaviors jaake ek nirdisto status sahito jadito achi taka ame kohuchu the your social rules। if you see the relationship between status and rules, it is a role represents the dynamic aspect of status। when any members here see whoever puts the right, when we are having a status, definitely we are going through we are experiencing the rights and duties which constitute a status into effect। it means a person is performing role when he is attached to a particular status। therefore statuses are occupied and roles are played। statuses are occupied, we are occupying a particular status in the society, and according to the status we are playing role। social status and social roles are important concepts in understanding how social life is organized and activities are distributed। एक बहुत सहज concept जाके आपण बुझी पारबे किछि ये नै status एवं role रे। while ideally the term status refers simply to the positions occupied by an individual in the society, whether of a man or woman, lawyer or shopkeeper, brahmin or dalit, we often attach a sense of high and low with statuses in our common everyday usage। एवं आमे समाज रे आपण माने एक्सपीरियंस करथबे देखुथबे डिफरेंट पीपल हैविंग डिफरेंट स्टेटसेस अकॉर्डिंग टू द कास्ट सिस्टम रे डिफरेंट स्टेटस लोकन को मिलुची। तापर आमे जदि मॉडर्न सोसाइटी को देखिबा अकॉर्डिंग टू द पोजीशंस ऑफ वेल्थ अचीव स्टेटस अनुसार अचीव तांका स्टेटस अनुसार दे आर हैविंग डिफरेंट स्टेटसेस इन द सोसाइटी। सो एक पोजीशंस ऑक्युपाई करते एक पर्सन एक इंडिविजुअल समाज रे एवं अकॉर्डिंग टू द स्टेटस सेमान को रेस्पेक्ट दिया जाए, सेमान को समाज सम्मान दिए, सेतरे अनेक गुडे प्रिविलेजेस थाए एवं किछटा स्टेटस जाके लोअर हायरार्की से तांती से अनेक गुडी सुविधा सुयोग डिप्राइव्ड होतांती. So according to the status, a particular your what is that you can say hierarchical status रे हमें expect करता हूँ जे से deprived हेबे कि privileged group रे से आसीबे. The status classifications are based upon where we live, what we do, what we eat, who do we mix up, with kind of schools or institutions we attend, which social category we belong to, and so on. এই হিসাবে আমরা স্ট্যাটাস নির্ধারিত হইতে সমাজে आमे को प्रकार घरे रहूचु गाड़ी चलुचु केते हमर बैंक बैलेंस अछि आमे हमर शिक्षागत योग्यता केते आमे को प्रकार स्कूल रो अटेंड करके आसिले हमर परवर्ती समय आमे को प्रकार एक चाकरी करूछे अनेक गुडे क्राइटेरिया रहउची जहा कि हमर स्टेटस निर्धारण करूची समाज रे. Therefore, status is also a basis of social stratification. An individual not just occupy a position, but these positions are also placed in a hierarchy. So, for example, one occupation is not merely different from another in division of labor, but also ranked in terms of prestige and differentially rewarded. এবং according to the status, ଆମର prestige issue ସେଥିରେ relate करा होची ଆମର according to our status ଆମକୁ ଏକ ନିର୍ଦ୍ଦିଷ୍ଟ ଏକ ଶ୍ରେଣୀଭୁକ୍ତ stratified ଆମକୁ କରା ଯାଉଛି ଏବଂ ସେଇ ଅନୁସାରେ ଅନେକ ଗୁଡେ ଜିନିଷ ଡିପେଣ୍ଡ କରୁଛି ଆମର ସମ୍ମାନ ରହିଲା ସମାଜରେ ଆମର ଯୋଉ ସମାଜରେ ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କର ତାଙ୍କର ଯୋଉ ଆମ ପ୍ରତି ଯୋଉ ତାଙ୍କର ରହୁଛି ରେସ୍ପେକ୍ଟ ବହୁତ କିଛି ଜିନିଷ ଡିପେଣ୍ଡ କରୁଛି. Après, if you see the definitions of your Max Weber status, it's a positive or negative social estimation of honor. It is your positive or negative social estimation of honor. It is a social estimation of honor. That is called your status. Okay, according to your status, our what is that estimations of honor is done. Then if you see Max Weber definition, it's a positive or negative social estimation of honor and related it to style of life and symbolized by housing, clothing, language spoken, manners of speech, and occupation. These are all this is your status according to Weber. This is why in everyday life having a luxury car or living in a affluent neighborhood is seen as a symbol of a person's status. While status normally seems to be determined by a person's income or wealth, unlike Marx, Weber argued that class and status may not always overlap. Status can be an independent basis of social stratification. Thus, both the properties and propertyless can belong to the same status group. तापरे आमे देखिबे स्टेटस अनुसार हमको अनेक गुडे आमे सुविधा सुयोग आमे उपभोग करूछु समाज रे अकॉर्डिंग टू द हायरार्किकल जो पोजीशंस रे आमे यदि हायर एक स्ट्रक्चर रे आमे रहउछु अनेक गुडे सुविधा सुयोग जेमते कि इंडियन कंटेक्स्ट को चिंता करा जो भारत सामाजिक जीवन रे हमर तो कास्ट बेस्ड सोसाइटी रे आमे देखबा वर्ण सिस्टम रे ब्राह्मण क्षेत्र वैश्य शूद्र एमतिया माने एक हायरार्की आसिले ब्राह्मण माने टॉप रे रहिले क्षत्रियस वैश्यस एमाने सबको प्योर वाक से जड़ित थिले अधिक सम्मान माने अनेक गुडे स्टेटस उपभोग सेमान अकॉर्डिंग टू स्टेटस माने अनेक गुडे सुविधा सुयोग उपभोग कले किंतु व्हेयर जो लोअर स्ट्रक्चर जो रहिले जो सर्विस क्लास जाके हम आगर ऑलरेडी डिस्कस कर सारी छे माने अनेक गुडे असुविधार सम्मुखीन होले अनेक गुडे सुविधा सुयोग से वंचित हेले तो स्टेटस ता हमको समाज रे हमको देई थे अनेक गुडे सुविधा सुयोग स्टेटस अनुसार हम होता अनेक गुडे सुविधा सुयोग पाइबे और अनेक गुडे सुविधा सुयोग वंचित है. Just as status is hierarchically arranged, positively or negatively valued, each status has privileges, disprivileges attached to it. Having the status of a Dalit or farmer untouchable in India, for instance, prevented the individuals from having access to public wealth, sharing food with other caste, or marrying someone from an upper caste family. हमें हमरा दैनंदिन सामाजिक जीवन रे होता ए जिनिस को हम एक्सपीरियंस करू जे एक दलित समाज बा जाको अस्पृश्य समाज लोक माननको अस्पृश्य कैटेगरी लोक माने जो माने कि माने अन्य मानक सहित मिलामिशा करि परबे नै अन्य मानक सहित खाद्य समान शेयर करि परबे नै माने गां कोर पानी नै परबे नै माने गां तोठरे गाधेई परबे नै एजुकेशन तांको डिनाय करा होची माने रिलीजियस इंस्टीट्यूशन तांको एंट्री करि परबे नै तो अनेक गुडे तांको बारण अछि बिकॉज़ दे आर enjoying a lower status in the society. Even in United States also, uh, being a black becomes a basis of for denial of right to employment and segregations in schools, housing, and public places. भारत जमतिया stratification अच्छी based on your caste. In America, we get that particular stratifications on the basis of your black and white. Racial discrimination is there. এবং এই রেସିଆଲ ଡିସ୍କ୍ରିମିନେସନ ଯୋଗୁ ସେମାନେ ଏମ୍ପ୍ଲୟମେଣ୍ଟ ରେ ତ ବିଭିନ୍ନ ସ୍କୁଲସ ରେ ହାଉସିଂ ରେ ବିଭିନ୍ନ ପବ୍ଲିକ ଆକ୍ଟିଭିଟିଜ ରେ ତାଙ୍କୁ ଘଟିଥାଏ ଡିପ୍ରାଇଭ କରାଯାଇଥାଏ ଏଇ ବ୍ଲାକ୍ ମାନଙ୍କୁ କମ୍ପେୟାର ଟୁ ୟୋର ହ୍ୱାଇଟ୍. However, honor or prestige assigned to a status is not unchanging. For example, societies where being a woman, disabled, black, or untouchable was considered inferior or stigmatized. These statuses and their roles are now positively seen owing to the struggle for rights and dignity that have been fought for years. किंतु बेले बेले ये जो पर्टिकुलर जो ऑनर एवं प्रेस्टीज जो असाइन्ड होता है एक निर्दिष्ट स्टेटस सहित या सबले समान रहे ना. इवन परिवर्तित सामाजिक जीवन रे या उल्टा भी है. Nowadays the particularly the suppose the you can say the disabled, the untouchables, जहाँ को inferior बा stigmatized मैं कहूतले लोक माने they are getting much more focus and status ये रे तांको एकड़ कराउची. Therefore both status and roles are dynamic and keep changing. सामाजिक जीवन रे ए परिस्थितिटा डायनेमिक अटे एवं जेहेतु स्टेटस टा डायनेमिक अटे रोल टा डायनेमिक होवा स्वाभाविक. एबे देखिबा टाइप्स ऑफ जो स्टेटसेस अछि केमितिया. That is your ascribed and achieved status. डिफरेंट प्रकार स्टेटस हम देखिबे. ascribed status टा कोन एवं achieved status टा कोन. या को हमें कहबा जे गुटे होचे अर्जित परिस्थिति आ गुटे होचे जन्मर जो परिस्थिति हम पहुंचे ascribed status. आमे भारत सामाजिक जीवन रे आमे ascribed status ऊपर हमर फोकस रहता है कारण कास्ट रीडिंग सोसाइटी हमर जन्मरु आमे एक निर्दिष्ट परिस्थिति पाइता. समाज रे के सम्मान पाइबो, समाज रे किए अनेक गुड़े सुविधा सुजोग पाइबो ता जन्मरु निर्धारित होता है. तुम ब्राह्मण कुल रे जन्म हेलो अनेक गुड़े सुविधा सुजोग उपभोग करिवो. तुम क्षत्रिय कुल रे गलो अनेक गुड़े सुविधा सुजोग, वैश्य अनेक गुड़े सुविधा सुजोग. किंतु दलित एवं जदि अनटचेबल तुम कैटेगरी रे तुम आउछ तुम जन्म होची तुम जन्मरु तुम परिस्थिति निर्धारित हो जाउची. तुम सम्मान पाइबो नै, अनेक गुड़े सुविधा सुजोग रु वंचित हेबो. तो जन्मरु परिस्थिति जो निर्धारित होता है दैट इज योर ascribed status you are getting based on your birth. एवं another your achieved status जाके मॉडर्न सोसाइटी देखियो मिले या होची अर्जित परिस्थिति. एथि परिस्थिति निर्धारित होची according to our achievement, our education, our properties, our every sort of thing जाके हमें हमर जन्म हमर लाइफ स्पैन जहाँ हमें अर्जन करता हूं according to that we are being accorded the status. So ascribed statuses are those which are assigned to individual without reference to their innate difference or abilities. The universally used criteria for exclusions of status are age, sex, kinship, and race. Birth of an individual in a particular social category, such as class and caste, also become criteria for exclusions of statuses in several but not all societies. किंतु प्रकृत रे ये जो हमें जो कहूँ जो ascribed status, it is based on your birth. According to the birth, a particular status is being given. एवं से अनुसार आम समाज रे अनेक गुड़े जिनस आम सुविधा सुजोग पाई था सुविधा सुजोग रु वंचित होता. Then you will see the achieved status. What is achieved status? Achieved statuses are those that are left upon to be filled through competitions and individual effort. Individual एक निर्दिष्ट व्यक्ति ता जीवदशा भितर जहाँ से अर्जन करुछि ताहा of wealth एवं ताहा होछि अर्जित परिस्थिति आमे जहाँ अर्जन करछंती जीवन भितर. So achieved status are those that are left open to be filled through competitions and individual effort. These are acquired over an individual's lifetime. Occupations and educations are thus called achieved statuses. Marital statuses of a wife or a husband are also achieved statuses. However, the line distinguishing between the two are not as clear as the same. For example, although the ascribed statuses seem fixed at birth, they are not immutable. Some people also undergo your gender change later in life. Uh, for a long time, gender was bifurcated into categories, that is your male and female. However, now a third broad category of transgender, which includes homosexuals, transsexuals, is also recognized in many parts of the what is it as an your outcome of your struggle for recognition. Furthermore, it is difficult to put strictly class or for that matter caste also in either of the two categories of ascribed and your achieved statuses. Now see what is master status. Master status in every society, there is always one status that tends to overshadow all other statuses or is given more importance by others. This is called the master status. Kokoda or master status, gender, race, and caste. It is the master statuses in the society. Hardly it is your we can change ଯାହାକି ଓଭରସେଡୋ କରୁଛି ଅଦର ଷ୍ଟାଟସେସ୍ ଆମେ ନିର୍ଦ୍ଧାରିତ ଯୋଉ ହଉଛି ଏକ ପୁରୁଷ ଏକ ସ୍ତ୍ରୀ ହିସାବରେ କିମ୍ବା ଏକ ରେସ୍ ଅନୁସାରେ ଏକ କାଷ୍ଟ ଅନୁସାରେ ଯୋଉ ନିର୍ଦ୍ଧାରଣ ଆମର ହେଇଗଲା ଆମେ ଯୋଉ ଏକ ପ୍ରସ୍ତୁତି ପାଇଲେ ଇଟ୍ ଇଜ ସୋ ଡିଫିକଲ୍ଟ ଟୁ ଚେଞ୍ଜ ଇଟ୍ ଏବଂ ଆକର୍ଡିଂଲି वी आर गेटिंग सम बेनिफिट्स और डिप्राइव्ड बाय এবং এইটা ওভারশেডো করছে अदर স্ট্যাটাসেস को फॉर एग्जांपल अपन बिकम मास्टर स्टैटस इन हाईली स्ट्रैटिफाइड सोसाइटीज अच्छा conflict socialists often engage with ascribed statuses of the gender and race as they argue that these often shape the individual's life chances including income, occupation, education, social network and so on. Similarly, mental or physical disability can also become a master status and govern the everyday behavior of the society towards the disabled. Disability becomes a master status, ଯଦ୍ୱାରା ମଣିଷ ଯେମିତିକି ଗୋଟେ ଏକ୍ସାମ୍ପଲ ଏଠି ବଢିଆ ଦିଆହଉଛି ଯେ ମନେକର ଜଣେ ପାରା ଅଲିମ୍ପିକ ଗୋଟେ ମେଡାଲ ଜିତିଲେ ପାରା ଅଲିମ୍ପିକ ବୋଲି ଆପଣ ବୁଝୁଛ ଯୋଉଟା କି ଆମର ଡିଜେବଲ୍ସ ମାନଙ୍କର ଯୋଉ ଅଲିମ୍ପିକ ହୁଏ ଏବଂ ସେପଟେ ଏକ ଜେନେରାଲ ଅଲିମ୍ପିକ ରେ ଜଣେ ପଦକ ଜିତିଲେ much more attention is being paid to your the people those who are attached with your Olympic games जो मेडल जीते ताको बेसी इंपोर्टेंस दिया होछ whereas जो माने पारा ओलंपिक जीतले ताको सेही प्रकार एक स्टेटस बा सेही प्रकार एक फोकस बा अटेंशन दिया होने तो ताको जो डिसेबिलिटी जो अछि ताको जो मास्टर स्टेटस ता ओवरशैडो करछि अदर स्टेटसेस लेट्स सी व्हाट इज योर रोल इज ऑल अबाउट रोल प्रत्येक स्टेटस सहित एक निर्दिष्ट रोल अटैच था वी प्ले ए रोल आमे घरे एक हस्बैंड हिसाब रे एक रोल प्ले करूछि बाहर काम करूछि आमे एक कोनोसी एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस रे गोटे मैनेजर काम करूछे आमे मैनेजर रो रोल प्ले करूछि एक क्लब रे आमे एक सेक्रेटरी बा आमे प्रेसिडेंट हेचे से अनुसार आमे एक रोल प्ले करूछि तो आमे अनेक गुटे रोल प्ले करूछि अकॉर्डिंग टू आवर स्टेटसेस दैट वी आर असाइन्ड विथ दैट योर पर्टिकुलर स्टेटस in our everyday life we are playing different roles attached to our different statuses आमे हम जीवन काल भितरे अनेक गुडे अकॉर्डिंग टू योर जेंडर अकॉर्डिंग टू योर व्हाट इज दैट रेस अकॉर्डिंग टू योर एजुकेशन आमे अनेक गुडे स्टेटस आमे उपभोग करूछे एवं प्रत्येक स्टेटस सहित एक रोल एक एक्सपेक्टेड बिहेवियर सेट ऑफ योर बिहेवियर पैटर्न एटा जे रहउछि आमे जाके डिस्प्ले करूछे जस्ट एज देयर आर मल्टीपल स्टेटसेस जे तो अछि मल्टीपल स्टेटस आमे प्ले करूछे there there are roles associated with each one of them. A woman, for instance, plays the role of daughter, sister, student, a private tutor, a friend, and so on. ଆମେ ମଧ୍ୟ ଆମର ଅନେକ ଗୁଟେ ରୋଲ ପ୍ଲେ କରୁଛୁ ଫ୍ୟାମିଲି ମେମ୍ବର ହିସାବରେ ପୁଅ ହିସାବରେ ତାପରେ ଏକ ଟିଚର ହିସାବରେ କିମ୍ବା କୌଣସି ଏକ ଜାଗାରେ ପ୍ରେସିଡେଣ୍ଟ ହିସାବରେ କୋଉଠି ଏକ ଜାଗାରେ ଏକ ଅନ୍ୟ ଏକ ଷ୍ଟାଟସ ଅନୁସାରେ वी आर प्लेइंग डिफरेंट रोल्स कारण प्रत्येक स्टेटस सहित एक निर्दिष्ट रोल अटैच अछि So, according to your guidance, he defines roles as socially defined. हमें देखिए रोल टा कौन socially defined expectations that a person in a given status or positions follows. ଯେତେବେଳେ ଏକ ନିର୍ଦ୍ଦିଷ୍ଟ status ଅନୁସାରେ ଏକ persons ଏକ defined expected ଏକ behavior pattern को ଯେତେବେଳେ follow କରୁଛି ଆମେ କହୁଛୁ ନା ସେ ଗୋଟେ role ଟେ play କରୁଛି. According attached to that status, that particular role is being played by that person. For example, when there is traffic congestions, we expect the traffic police to manage the traffic and ease the flow of vehicles. Similarly, at a restaurant, the customer expects the waiters to provide the menu, note down the orders, and serve the food. जे जो status enjoy करूची সেই status अनुसारे एक expected behavior pattern attaches that is role এবং সেই অনুসারে তার role से play करूची ଆମେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଦେଖି ଦଉଛୁ ଗୋଟେ ଟ୍ରାଫିକ ରେ ଟ୍ରାଫିକ ଭିଡ଼ ହେଇଛି ଏବଂ ଗୋଟେ ଟ୍ରାଫିକ ଇନ୍ସପେକ୍ଟର ଛିଡା ହେଇଛନ୍ତି ଆମେ ସେତେବେଳେ ଏକ୍ସପେକ୍ଟ କରୁଛୁ ଏଇ ଲୋକଟା ଏଇ କାମଟିକୁ ସେ ସହଜରେ କରିବ ହୋଟେଲ ଯାଉଛୁ ରେଷ୍ଟୁରାଣ୍ଟରେ ଏକ ୱେଟର ଆଉଛି ଆମେ ଏକ୍ସପେକ୍ଟ କରୁଛୁ ଯେ ଯେହେତୁ ସେ ୱେଟର ସେ ତାର ସେ ରୋଲ ପ୍ଲେ କରିବ ଏବଂ ଆମଠୁ ସେ ମେନ୍ୟୁ ଦେଖେଇକି ଆମକୁ ସେ ଅର୍ଡର ନେବ ତ ଏକ୍ସପେକ୍ଟେଡ ୟର ବିହେଭିୟର ପ୍ୟାଟର୍ନ ରହୁଛି ପ୍ରତ୍ୟେକ ଷ୍ଟାଟସ ସହିତ and accordingly a person is playing that role. Roles help in maintaining some kind of social order and predictability in interaction. According to Turner, role is a cluster of behavioral and behavior and attitudes. Role is a cluster of behavior and attitude. Clusters, गुच्छा या behavior pattern एक एवं attitudes एक समारोह होची that is your role. Even Turner argues that roles help in organizing social behavior both at individual and collective level. Even according to Benetton, he defines role as a cluster of rights and obligations. Yeah, adhikar এবং obligations ର ଏକ cluster that is your role. And what is one individual's obligations is or her partner's right. ଏବଂ ଗୋଟେ ଲୋକର ରୋଲଟା ଅନ୍ୟ ପାଇଁ ତାର ରାଇଟ୍ସ ହେଇଯାଉଛି ଯେମିତି କି ଗୋଟେ ଟ୍ରାଫିକ ଇନ୍ସପେକ୍ଟର ତାର एज ए ट्राफिक इंस्पेक्टर तार सर रोल होची से सो एज टू मैनेज द ट्राफिक और से ट्राफिक मैनेज करू यह आमे चाहू हमर अधिकार रो ये जे ने से एक ट्राफिक इंस्पेक्टर हिसाब से से रोलटा से प्ले करी तो एमितिया समाज रे जनकर रोलटा अन्य राइट्स तार रोल तार राइट्स दिस वे द कांसेप्ट ऑफ रोल provides one of the available means for studying elements of cooperation. Then let's see the distinctions between the expected behavior and actual behavior of individual. The expected behavior is one which an individual is expected to perform as per the status and role assigned to him or her. That is expected behavior. हमें एक स्टूडेंट हिसाब रे गोटे शिक्षक ता स्टूडेंट टू एक बिहेवियर से एक्सपेक्ट करूची जे दे एई प्रकार से बिहेवियर से डिस्प्ले करी तापरे हमें विभिन्न पोजीशंस रे देयर आर एक्सपेक्टेड बिहेवियर पैटर्न्स आर देयर अटैच्ड टू ए पर्टिकुलर स्टेटस एक स्टेटस अनुसार एक निर्दिष्ट बिहेवियर पैटर्न हमें एक्सपेक्ट करूछु अकॉर्डिंग टू द रोल प्लेड बाय दैट पर्सन द एक्चुअल बिहेवियर ऑफ द पर्सन्स may different from the expected behavior एवं हमर जो एक्चुअल बिहेवियर अछि ता एक्सपेक्टेड बिहेवियर रो डिफरेंट अटे then the actual behavior of the persons may different from the expected behavior एवं according to Benton say further refine करचंती distinctions and added that actual behavior can related to role cognitions that is an individual's own ideas of what is appropriate expectations that is to other people's ideas about what he will do and norms that is to other people's ideas about what he should do ए हिसाब रे हमरा expected behavior is different from your actual behavior अच्छा आमे जो एक स्टेटस आमे जो एन्जॉय करछु समाज प्रत्येक स्टेटस से एक रोल अटैच रहउछि प्रत्येक स्टेटस अनुसार लोक हमटू एक्सपेक्ट करछन्ती जे एई लोकटा एमितिया एक व्यवहार देखाइबो अकॉर्डिंग टू द स्टेटस एवं एहा हमें कोठो सिखिले अकॉर्डिंग ए रोल लर्निंग ता कोठो है दैट इज फ्रॉम योर सोसाइटी from the immediate human environment ରୁ ଆମେ ଏଇ role learning ଟାକୁ ଆଣିଲେ। ତ କେମିତି ଦେଖ, role learning begins at a young age when children start observing how people in their surroundings behave with them and towards each other। समाज आम सामाजिक जीवन रे from the very childhood ଆମର रोल लर्निंग स्टार्ट हो जाउछ। आमे अन्य मानन को देखुछु जे समाने विभिन्न पोजीशंस रे विभिन्न स्टेटस रे थाय कि केमितिया समाने बिहेवियर डिस्प्ले समाने करछंती एवं अकॉर्डिंगली ताको सिखि कि आमे डिस्प्ले करूछु। In fact, children often engage in role playing games where they enact the role of a mother, father or teacher। ସେଥିପାଇଁ छोट दिन छुआ मान को विभिन्न ड्रामा विभिन्न वन एक्ट प्ले रे विभिन्न सिचुएशंस रे विभिन्न फंक्शंस मान जनवरी 24 अगस्त 15 रे किए वीर सुरेंद्र सायर रोल टा प्ले करूची, किए एक रानी रोल टा झांसी रानी रोल टा प्ले करूची, किए महात्मा गांधी का रोल टा प्ले करूची। तो छोट दिन रोल योर लर्निंग स्टार्ट हो जाए कि छोट छोट सामाजिक ड्रामा मान जड़े गोटे छोट छुआटे गोटे फादर रोल प्ले करुचे, गोटे छोट कुनी झीटे से एक मदर रोल प्ले करुचे कि सिस्टर रोल प्ले करुचे कि एक जमींदार रोल जड़े प्ले करुचे। तो अकॉर्डिंगली रोल लर्निंग आम छोट दिन स्टार्ट हो जाए। आम जो बड़ है बेलू जो अनेक गुड़े जो रोल प्ले करुचु बा जो बिहेवियर जो आम डिस्प्ले करुचु वेरी अर्ली चाइल्डहुड रु आम ताको शिखिबा आरंभ करिछि। Then in our daily lives we smoothly switch from one role to another without much effort and also play distinct roles at the same time। जिते बेले हमर समाज रे हमर स्टेटस परिवर्तन हो जाए एवं अकॉर्डिंग टू द स्टेटस अनु आमे संगे संगे हमर रोल को मध्य आमे स्विच अप स्विच करथाऊ, अन्य एक रोल आमे प्ले करथाऊ डिस्टिंक्ट रोल्स इन द सेम टाइम। How one behaves as a daughter is different from how one behaves as a friend। Similarly, social situations also defines roles we play। आ विभिन्न सामाजिक जीवन रे विभिन्न परिस्थिति रे आमे डिफरेंट डिफरेंट रोल प्ले करथाऊ। एज ए फ्रेंड हमरा एक रोल डिफरेंट रोल प्ले करथाऊ, एज ए ब्रदर आमे डिफरेंट रोल प्ले करथाऊ, किमा एज ए योर फादर यू आर प्लेइंग ए डिफरेंट रोल। सो आमे एवं एट ए टाइम गोटे दिन भितरे आमे अनेक गुडे स्टेटस एंजॉय करछु। अकॉर्डिंग टू स्टेटस हमर रोल गुडा का अछि, आमे स्टेटस परिवर्तन हेते जाउछि, हमर रोल टा हमर स्विच हेते जाउछि, आमे भिन्न भिन्न रोल प्ले करछु। How we behave in a formal setup of workspace is different from how we behave at home। Thus, we tend to compartmentalize our lives and roles। So, a criminal lawyer behaves differently at home from how she behaves in the courtroom। एक वकील कोर्टरूम रे जेमती बिहेव करूची घरे सेमती बिहेव करूची नॉट लाइक दैट। एक टीचर जेमती स्कूल रे बिहेव करूची से आसे कि घरे सेमितिया प्रकार का बिहेव से करूची नो, कारण अकॉर्डिंग टू द योर स्टेटस दे आर प्लेइंग डिफरेंट रोल्स एवं अकॉर्डिंग टू द रोल्स ए पर्टिकुलर एक बिहेवियर पैटर्न से फॉलो करूची। However, to say that everyone conforms to the socially laid your expectations and will be not be true, and that is altogether it is not also true। Individuals in their everyday life are also constantly negotiating and redefining the roles they play। Roles assigned to a particular status are also challenged। किंतु बेले बेले एई जो एक निर्दिष्ट स्टेटस सहित एक जो निर्दिष्ट रोल जने प्ले करूची ता सब बेले समान नुहे, बेले बेले आ चैलेंज हुए। जेमति कि फॉर एग्जांपल इन इंडिया हिस्टोरिकली वुमेन वर एक्सपेक्टेड टू परफॉर्म डोमेस्टिक कोर्स एंड कन्फाइंड लार्जली टू द प्राइवेट स्फीयर्स ऑफ होम। आमे जदि भारतीय सामाजिक व्यवस्था देखिबा महिला मानकर प्रस्थिति अनुसार तांकर भूमिका कोन कोन थिला आगरु एक एक आमे जले सिंपल सोसाइटी ବୋଲି चिंता करबा से समय ता काम आला से माने घरे से माने पिला छुआ को देख रेखा करिवे किमा जो हमर जो ऑक्युपेशन अछि जो मुख्य जो वृत्ति जो कृषि हैला किमा जो कुटीर शिल्प हैला सेते तांकर टिके असिस्टेंस रहइबो लिमिटेड तांकर काम थिला। किंतु तांकर जो स्टेटस एवं तांकर रोल टा एबे चेंज हिची कि नै वर्तमान मॉडर्न सोसाइटी तो या बेले बेले स्टेटस एवं रोल चैलेंज हुए in different situation। So in India historically women were expected to perform domestic chores and confined largely to the private sphere of home। However, women are now taking up roles that were traditionally expected of men, particularly in urban India। It is important to keep in mind that social changes are slow and may take several years and sometimes even concentrated struggles. ଯଦିଓ ଏକ ନିର୍ଦ୍ଦିଷ୍ଟ ଷ୍ଟାଟସ୍ ସହିତ ଏକ ନିର୍ଦ୍ଦିଷ୍ଟ ରୋଲ୍ ଅଛି, ତାହା ସମାଜରେ ପୁରା ଏଷ୍ଟାବ୍ଲିଶ ଥାଏ ଏବଂ ତାକୁ ଚେଞ୍ଜ, ଯଦିଓ ସାମାଜିକ ପରିବର୍ତ୍ତନ ସହ ଅନେକ ଗୁଡ଼ିଏ ଚେଞ୍ଜ ହୁଏ, ଯେମିତିକି ଏବେ ମୁଁ କହୁଥିଲି ଯେ ମହିଳାମାନଙ୍କର ତାଙ୍କର ପ୍ରସ୍ଥିତି ଏବଂ ଭୂମିକା ଚେଞ୍ଜ ହେଇଗଲାଣି ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ଆଧୁନିକ ସମାଜରେ। ଅର୍ବାନ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆରେ ତାହା ଆଉ ନାହିଁ, କିନ୍ତୁ ତାହା ହେବା ପାଇଁ ବହୁତ ସମୟ ଲାଗିଛି। Now let's say that if you'll see the perspective of your structuralist, they view roles as norms and expectations associated with statuses in the social structure where individuals are socialized into role taking. Now let's see as like your different your status. Now see uh, the classification of roles. Classification of roles. We can classify roles into ascribed roles and achieved roles. I mean, the classify करतले ascribed status and achieved status. Accordingly, you can have your ascribed roles and achieved roles. Then you can have your relational and non-relational roles. And third is your basic, general, and independent roles. These are the classifications of different roles. Our जो भूमिका रहुचे समाज, according to the statuses, that are your classified into ascribed roles, achieved roles, relational and your non-relational roles, among basic, general, and independent roles. Now see what is ascribed roles and your achieved roles. Like ascribed statuses, the ascribed roles are the ones that are given at birth. ଆମେ କେତେଟା ଆମେ ଆମର ଭାରତରେ ପାର୍ଟିକୁଲାରଲି ଆମର ପ୍ରସ୍ଥିତି କୋଉ ଜନ୍ମରୁ ନିର୍ଦ୍ଧାରିତ। ଆମେ ଯୋଉ କୂଳରେ ଜନ୍ମ ହେଲେ ସେଇ ଅନୁସାରେ ଆମକୁ ଏକ ପ୍ରସ୍ଥିତି ଆମେ ପାଉଛେ ଏବଂ ଯୋଉ ପ୍ରସ୍ଥିତି ପାଇଲେ ସେଇ ହିସାବରେ ଆମେ ଏକ ରୋଲ ପ୍ଲେ କରୁଛେ। ଆମେ ସପୋଜ ଛୋଟ ଦିନରେ ଫ୍ରମ ଦ ଭେରି ବାର୍ଥ ଆମେ ଗୋଟେ ବ୍ରାହ୍ମଣ କୂଳରେ ଜନ୍ମ ନେଲେ। ବ୍ରାହ୍ମଣ କୂଳରେ ଜନ୍ମ ନେଲେ କି ଆମେ ସେଇ ବ୍ରାହ୍ମଣ ହିସାବରେ ଆମେ ଯୋଉ ଷ୍ଟାଟସ ପାଇଲେ ସମାଜରେ ସେଇ ଅନୁସାରେ ଆମ ରୋଲଟା କ'ଣ ହବ, ଆମେ ଛୋଟ ଦିନ ରୋଲ ଲର୍ଣ୍ଣିଂ ଷ୍ଟାର୍ଟ ହେଇଗଲା। that is ascribed roles that we are playing. So ascribed roles are the ones that are given at birth. From the time an individual is born, role learning begins, which is a part we know that your socialization. এবং যে ଯୋଉ କୂଳରେ ଜନ୍ମ ହେଲା, ଯୋଉ କାଷ୍ଟ ଜନ୍ମ ହେଲା, ସେ ଏକ ନିର୍ଦ୍ଦିଷ୍ଟ ପରିସ୍ଥିତି ପାଇଲା ଏବଂ ସେଇ ପରିସ୍ଥିତି ସହିତ ଜଡ଼ିତ ଥିବା ତାର ରୋଲ ଯୋଉ ଅଛି, ତାର ଯୋଉ ଭୂମିକା ଯୋଉ ଅଛି, ସେ ଯୋଉ ନିର୍ଦ୍ଦିଷ୍ଟ ଏକ ବିହେଭିୟର ପ୍ୟାଟର୍ନ ବା ଶିଖିବା କଥା ଯାହାକୁ ସେ ଡିସପ୍ଲେ କରିବ ଆକର୍ଡିଂ ଟୁ ୟୋର ଷ୍ଟାଟସ୍, ତାହା ସେ ଲର୍ନ କରୁଛି ଫ୍ରମ ଦ ଭେରି ଚାଇଲ୍ଡହୁଡ ଏବଂ ଇନ୍ ଦ ୟୋର ପ୍ରୋସେସ ଅଫ ସୋସିଆଲାଇଜେସନ, ସାମାଜିକୀକରଣ ପଦ୍ଧତିରେ ତାକୁ ସେ ଶିଖିବା ସେ ଆରମ୍ଭ କରୁଛି। These roles pertain to one sex, age, kinship, caste, class, and so on. Again, if you see the achieved roles, the achieved roles, on the other hand, are the ones that are largely acquired over a lifetime on the basis of merit, such as occupational roles of a farmer, salesperson, banker, shopkeeper, driver, lawyer, professor, etc. So, this is the difference between your achieved and your ascribed roles. Then see the relational and non-relational roles. What is that? There are certain roles which are complementary in nature and are conceived of and defined in relation to others. One good example of relational role is that of a wife, which cannot be conceived of without the husband. Similarly, the role of a debtor cannot exist without the role of a creditor. So here the role that we play, which is conceived of with relations to another person. Non-relational roles, on the other hand, are not dependent or complementary, such as the role of a musician, researcher, and painter. Age and sex roles largely fall in the category of non-relational roles, whereas kinship roles can be classified as relational. Now see the basic, general, and independent roles. What is that? Basic roles. Let's see what is basic roles. Basic roles are mostly determined by sex and age, ascribed to individuals at birth, and these roles shapes conduct in a large number of social contexts. This is your basic rules that are expected, the behavior pattern that we are expected to display according to our sex, age, which are ascribed to us as an individual. Then general roles that we play, that is your general roles are mostly assigned on the basis of merit of the individual. Those are your general roles. Then independent roles are determined by merit and have very less implications for other roles, and on the very and the way people respond to the person who occupies the independent role. Example of independent roles are leisure roles and many occupational roles. आमे अवकाश समय जो रोल प्ले करूचे, जो इंडिपेंडेंट रोल आमे जो प्ले करूचे, that is not your complementary or dependent to other your roles or something like that. Usually an individual's sex role shapes the individual's conduct and the response of other towards him or her more than any other role. प्रकृतरे आमे जितेले एक निर्दिष्ट सेक्स रोल प्ले करूचे, जे मेल और फीमेल एक ताहा इजिली या हमको सेप्स दिए हमर कंडक्ट हमर रेस्पॉन्स केमती हेबा कथा. Usually, an individual's sex roles shapes the individual's conduct and the response of others towards him or her more than any other role. Occupational roles also shape the way people respond to an individual, particularly in workspace or social gathering. The leisure roles are more independent and have limited influence outside of a particular setting, for example, golfer or your golf club. Now, let's see the how this your sex role shapes the individual's conduct and the response. Placement of different roles in the scale will vary from one society to another. In primitive societies, for example, there are small numbers of highly undifferentiated basic roles linked to sex and age. But in advanced industrial societies, the importance of age and sex roles is limited and less. We see more independent roles in advanced societies. For example, in primitive societies, uh, you know, of your bushman role of a woman was tied to her sex and she was restricted from taking up roles that were defined for men. ଆଉ କାଳରେ କଣ ହଉଥିଲା ଯେ ଏକ ଯଦି ଆମେ ଯଦି ଦେଖିବା ପ୍ରିମିଟିଭ सोसाइटी को ଦେଖିବା ଯେ ଏକ ପୁରୁଷ ଏବଂ ମହିଳା ଯାହାକି according to their sex they are classified into two groups ଏବଂ ତାଙ୍କର status ଏବଂ ସେଇଥିରେ କଣ ହଉଥିଲା ଯେ ଯୋଉ according to status ଏକ ମହିଳାର କାମ ଯାହା ଥିଲା ସେ କେବଳ ତାହା ହିଁ କରୁଥିଲା, ସେ ମେଲ ମାନଙ୍କର କାମ କରୁନଥିଲା. ମେଲ ମାନଙ୍କର ଯାହା କାମ ଥିଲା ତାହା ସେମାନେ ଫିମେଲ ମାନଙ୍କର କାମ କରିବେନି. ଆଜିକାଲି ଯେମିତି କି ଆମ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆରେ ମଧ୍ୟ ନୁହେଁ, ଦେଖା ଯାଉଛି କି ନାହିଁ ସେ ଜିନିଷଟା, ଯେମିତି କି ଗୋଟେ ମହିଳାର କାର୍ଯ୍ୟ ଘରେ ସେ ଛୁଆମାନଙ୍କ ଦେଖାଶୁଣା କରିବ, ଖାଦ୍ୟପେୟ ବନେଇବ, ଅନେକ ଗୁଡେ ଘର କରଣା କାମ କରିବ ଯାହାକି ମେଲ ଟଚ୍ କରିବେ ନାହିଁ, କିମ୍ବା ପୁରୁଷମାନଙ୍କ ଯୋଉ କାର୍ଯ୍ୟ ଅଛି ତାହା ଟଚ୍ କରିବେ ନାହିଁ. ଏହା ପାରମ୍ପରିକ ରହିଥିଲା ଇନ୍ ଦ ପ୍ରିମିଟିଭ ସୋସାଇଟି, କିନ୍ତୁ ସେ ପାର୍ଟିକୁଲାର ଯୋଉ ରୋଲଟା ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ମଡର୍ନ ସୋସାଇଟିରେ ଇଣ୍ଡଷ୍ଟ୍ରିଆଲ ସେଟଅପରେ ତା ଅର୍ବାନ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆରେ ବା ଅନ୍ୟ ତମର ଅର୍ବାନ ସେଟଅପରେ ତା ଚେଞ୍ଜ ହେଇଗଲାଣି. However, in modern societies, women occupy more independent roles like a female manager or doctor, where they are judged in the same way as men are. କିନ୍ତୁ ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ପରିସ୍ଥିତିରେ ସେ ସବୁଗୁଡାକ ଚେଞ୍ଜ ହେଇଯାଇଛି. Now say role systems, simple and complex societies. According to your Benton, one of the ways to understand variations in social organizations is to study the criteria on basis of which roles are given to an individual. Roles allocations in simple societies differ from those in complex industrial societies. ଆମର ଯୋଉ ରୋଲ ଆଲୋକେସନ ହଉଛି ଆମକୁ according to the status ଏକ ରୋଲ ଇଏ କରାହଉଛି, ଯାହାକି ପ୍ରିମିଟିଭ ସୋସାଇଟିରେ ଇଟ୍ ୱାଜ କ୍ୱାଇଟ୍ ଇଜିୟର, କିନ୍ତୁ ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ କମ୍ପ୍ଲେକ୍ସ ସୋସାଇଟିଜରେ ଇଟ୍ ଇଜ ଟୁ କମ୍ପ୍ଲେକ୍ସ. ଦେଖିବା ରୋଲ୍ସ ଇନ୍ ସିମ୍ପଲ ସୋସାଇଟିଜ କେମିତି ଥିଲା, ରୋଲ୍ସ କମ୍ପ୍ଲେକ୍ସ ସୋସାଇଟିରେ କେମିତି ହେଇଯାଇଛି. ଆମେ ମୁଁ ଜଷ୍ଟ ଟିକେ କହୁଥିଲି ମହିଳା ମାନଙ୍କର ଜଣେ ମହିଳା ହିସାବରେ ଜଣେ ସ୍ତ୍ରୀ ଲୋକ ହିସାବରେ ତାର ଯୋଉ ଏକ୍ସପେକ୍ଟେଡ ରୋଲ ଯୋଉ ଥିଲା ପ୍ରିମିଟିଭ ସୋସାଇଟିରେ ତାହା ମଡର୍ନ ସୋସାଇଟିରେ ଅଛି କି नो चेंज. ଚାରିକାନ୍ଥ ଭିତରେ ଥିବା ସେ ମହିଳା ମାନଙ୍କର ଭୂମିକା, ତାଙ୍କର ପ୍ରସ୍ଥିତି ଏବେ मॉडर्न सोसाइटी रे तांकर परिस्थिति बदली गला एवं अकॉर्डिंगली तांकर भूमिका मध्य बदली गला एक चेंजिंग एक स्टेटस तांकर आइछि एवं अकॉर्डिंगली चेंजिंग एक्सपेक्टेड रोल्स दैट वी आर गेटिंग roles in simple society. In the simple society like that of your Bushmen in your Kalahari Desert in southern Africa and Eskimo in your Arctic your west, roles are allocated based upon the natural differences of age, sex and kinship. ଆମେ ଯଦି ପ୍ରିମିଟିଭ ସୋସାଇଟିକୁ ଦେଖିବା ସିମ୍ପଲ ସୋସାଇଟିକୁ ଦେଖିବା ଯେ ସେ ସମୟରେ ଯୋଉ ପୁରୁଷ ଏବଂ ସ୍ତ୍ରୀ ମାନଙ୍କୁ ତାଙ୍କର କେମିତି ରୋଲ ଏଲୋକେସନ ତାଙ୍କର ଥିଲା କେମିତି ତାଙ୍କୁ ଦିଆ ହଉଥିଲା ଭିନ୍ନ ଭିନ୍ନ ଦାୟିତ୍ୱ according to their age, sex and kinship. ସେହି ଅନୁସାରେ ତାଙ୍କୁ ରୋଲ ଟା ଦିଆ ହଉଥିଲା. The division of roles on the basis of sex took place in the following manners. A man is responsible for hunting, preparing your skins for clothing, making weapons, building fire, and sometimes helping the woman in fetching wood and water. ଏହା ଥିଲା ମେଲ ମାନଙ୍କର ତାଙ୍କର ଯୋଉ ରୋଲ ଟୁ ବି ଡିସପ୍ଲେ ବା ତାଙ୍କୁ ଏଇ ପ୍ରକାର ଏକ ଭୂମିକା ତାଙ୍କୁ ଦିଆ ହଉଥିଲା ମେଲ ମାନଙ୍କୁ. The wife, on the other hand, builds shelter for the family, takes takes care of your children, gathers and prepares food and keeps the residence clean. ଏମିତିଆ ଏକ ଭୂମିକା ତାଙ୍କୁ ଦିଆ ହଉଥିଲା as a woman. ତାପରେ the other basis of role allocations is age. ତାପରେ ଏଜ ଅନୁସାରେ ମଧ୍ୟ ଏ ତ ଗଲା ସେକ୍ସ କୁ ନେଇକି ତାଙ୍କୁ ଯୋଉ ଭୂମିକା ଯୋଉ ଦିଆ ହଉଥିଲା ଆମେ ଦେଖିବା according to their age ଅନୁସାରେ ମଧ୍ୟ ତାଙ୍କୁ ଭିନ୍ନ ଭିନ୍ନ ଭୂମିକା ଦିଆ ହଉଥିଲା କେମିତିଆ the other basis of role allocation is age. A boy's passage into manhood is marked when he kills his first buck and this passage is celebrated with rituals. ତାପରେ ଆମେ ଦେଖିବା ଏଜ ଅନୁସାରେ ମଧ୍ୟ ତାଙ୍କୁ ଯଦି ଗୋଟେ ଯଦି ଆମେ ସେ ଯୋଉ ବୁଶମେନ୍ ଇନ୍ କଲାହାରି ଡେଜର୍ଟ ଯଦି ତାଙ୍କ ଯଦି ତାଙ୍କର ଜୀବନକୁ ଆମେ ଯଦି ଷ୍ଟଡି କରିବେ ତାଙ୍କ ଲାଇଫଷ୍ଟାଇଲ ତାଙ୍କୁ ଆମେ ଯଦି ଦେଖିବେ ଗୌର ସେ ତାକୁ ଦେଖିବେ ତାହେଲେ କିମ୍ବା ଅନ୍ୟ ପ୍ରିମିଟିଭ ସୋସାଇଟିକୁ ଆମେ ଦେଖିବେ ସିମ୍ପଲ ସୋସାଇଟିକୁ ଦେଖିବେ ସେଠି ଗୋଟେ ଗୋଟେ ପୁଅକୁ ସେ ସେତେବେଳେ ତାକୁ ମ୍ୟାନହୁଡ ବା ଏକ ସାବାଳକ ବୋଲି କୁହାଯିବ ବା ତାକୁ ଏକ ମେମ୍ବର ହିସାବରେ ରେକଗ୍ନାଇଜେସନ ତାକୁ ମିଳିବ ଯେହେଲେ ସେ ପ୍ରଥମେ when he kills his first buck and this message is celebrated with rituals. ସେ ଫାଷ୍ଟ ବକ୍ ଯେତେବେଳେ ମାରିବ ତାକୁ ଆମେ ତାକୁ ସେମାନେ ମ୍ୟାନହୁଡ ତାକୁ ଦର୍ଜା ଦେବେ ବା ଷ୍ଟାଟସ ଦେବେ ଏବଂ ସେଥିପାଇଁ ସେମାନେ ଏକ ନିର୍ଦ୍ଦିଷ୍ଟ ଏକ ରିଚୁଆଲ୍ସ ଏକ ସେଠି ସେଲିବ୍ରେସନ୍ସ ହେବ ସେଠି thereafter he is allowed to marry ଏବଂ ତାକୁ ବାହା ହେବା ପାଇଁ ତାକୁ ସେ ଏଲିଜିବଲ ବୋଲି ମଧ୍ୟ ଘୋଷଣା କରାଯିବ. In case of a girl she can be married when a baby but she takes the role of a wife and a married woman only when she matures physically. ତାପରେ ଗୋଟେ ଝିଅକୁ ମଧ୍ୟ ଏଲାଉ କରାଯିବ ବାହା ହେବା ପାଇଁ କିନ୍ତୁ ତାକୁ ଏକ ସେ ଗୋଟେ ଓମେନ ର ରୋଲ ପ୍ଲେ କରିବ ବା ଗୋଟେ ହାଉସ ହୋଲ୍ଡ ରେ ଯାଇକି ତାର ଏକ ଭୂମିକା ସେ ଇଏ କରିବ ଯେତେବେଳେ when he matures physically. Elderly people are treated with respect and as experts on traditions, myths and family lineage. ଏବଂ ଯୋଉ ବୃଦ୍ଧାବସ୍ଥାର ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କୁ ବା ଯୋଉମାନେ ଏଜେଡ୍ ହୁଅନ୍ତି ସେମାନଙ୍କୁ ରେସ୍ପେକ୍ଟ ଦିଆଯାଏ ଏବଂ ଘରେ ଘରେ ତାଙ୍କର ପରାମର୍ଶ ବିଭିନ୍ନ ସିଚୁଏସନରେ ନିଆଯାଏ. So accordingly different roles allocations are being done accordingly the sex age ଏବଂ last ହଉଛି this your on the basis of your kinship. The third basis is of your kinship. କେମିତି mothers and fathers perform the important role of bringing up their children. Then when the children grow up as adults they have certain mutual obligations with their parents. Marriage between man and woman can be dissolved but as the rarely quarrel divorce is rare. Marriages between close relations are avoided to keep kin ties clear. So this is based on your kinship. The role allocation is based on your kinship. ଏଇଟା ହଉଛି ସିମ୍ପଲ ସୋସାଇଟିରେ କେମିତିଆ ରୋଲ ଆଲୋକେସନ ହଉଥିଲା. ଏବେ ଦେଖିବା ଯେ ଆମର କମ୍ପ୍ଲେକ୍ସ ସୋସାଇଟି ଯାହାକି ଆମର ଇଣ୍ଡଷ୍ଟ୍ରିଆଲ ସେଟଅପରେ ଅର୍ବାନ ସେଟଅପରେ କେମିତିଆ ରୋଲ୍ସ ଆଲୋକେସନ ହଉଛି. Here we discuss how roles are allocated on the distinctions of age, sex and kinship in simple societies. Now we'll discuss the role allocations in complex societies. That is your let's say. But as societies become complex, new criteria has to be introduced for role division. Role division ଏବେ ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ଯୋଉ ଆମର ଯୋଉ complex society ରେ modern societies ରେ you know the criteria ଟା ଭିନ୍ନ ହେଇଯାଏ so far your role allocation is concerned. That is your social strata. ଆମର role allocations ହୁଏ according to your social strata. ଆମର ଭାରତ ବର୍ଷରେ ତ ହଉଛି. Some societies are organized on the basis of ranks such as nobles, commoners, slaves. People belonging to the same strata share a similar existence and have some privileges and duties towards the king. While the while the uh, while this kind of social strata is more flexible than rigid role system of simple societies, social strata can become rigid and discriminatory to an extent where birth in a particular category influences the life chances of individuals. In such rigid system of stratification, living the category in which person is born becomes difficult. So here the social stratification ଅନୁସାରେ ତାଙ୍କ ରୋଲ ଏଲୋକେସନ ହେଇଥାଏ ଯାହାକି ଆଗରୁ ମଧ୍ୟ ଆମେ ଏହା ସମ୍ବନ୍ଧରେ ଅନେକ ଆଲୋଚନା କରିଥିଲେ फिर भी ଗୋଟେ एग्जांपल ମଧ୍ୟ କହୁଛି take for example the caste system in India where a person born in a particular caste is expected to adapt to the caste specific norms customs occupations and roles of interactions with other caste ଆମେ ଆଗରୁ ଡିସ୍କସ ବି କରିଥିଲେ ଏହା ସମ୍ବନ୍ଧରେ ଯେ ଭାରତ ବର୍ଷରେ ଯେଉଁଠି ଏକ ଜାତିଭିତ୍ତିକ ସାମାଜିକ ବ୍ୟବସ୍ଥାରେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଜଣେ ଲୋକ ଏକ ନିର୍ଦ୍ଦିଷ୍ଟ ଜାତିରେ ଜନ୍ମଗ୍ରହଣ କରୁଛି ତାକୁ ଏକ ନିର୍ଦ୍ଦିଷ୍ଟ ଷ୍ଟାଟସ ଉପଭୋଗ କରୁଛି ଏବଂ according to the status a particular role is attached to that particular status and accordingly a particular behavior pattern is expected from that particular person. So role allocation is done as per the birth of that particular individual. Deviation from roles are often disapproved and also punished, particularly when a lower caste individual does so. ଏବଂ ଏଥିପାଇଁ ସମାଜରେ ମଧ୍ୟ particular role allocation ହେଇଯାଏ according to your that your status and your that is your based on birth ତାହା ଯଦି ସେମାନେ ଯଦି particular role ସେମାନେ display କଲେ ନାହିଁ they may what is that welcome your punishment. While these norms are not as rigid as they used to be earlier due to continuous struggle and legal actions, caste-based rules of interactions and roles still prevail in the present day. ଯଦିଓ ସାମାଜିକ ପରିବର୍ତ୍ତନ ସାଙ୍ଗକୁ ଏଥିରେ କିଛି ମାତ୍ରାରେ ପରିବର୍ତ୍ତନ ହେଇଛି ତଥାପି still we experience different sorts of your what is that roles behavior pattern as per your status which are rigid in nature. Then let's see the diversifications and specializations of tasks. ଏକ ନିର୍ଦ୍ଦିଷ୍ଟ ଆମର କମ୍ପ୍ଲେକ୍ସ ସୋସାଇଟିଜ ରେ ରୋଲ ଏଲୋକେସନ ହଉଛି ଏବଂ ରୋଲ ଅନୁସାରେ ଆମେ ରୋଲ ପ୍ଲେ ଭୂମିକା ନିର୍ବାହ କରୁଛୁ ଆମର ଡାଇଭରସିଫିକେସନ ଆଣ୍ଡ ସ୍ପେସିଆଲାଇଜେସନ ଅଫ ଟାସ୍କ ଆମର ରହୁଛି in complex societies tasks are distributed based on specialization and skills from largest to even smallest of organizations have role divisions. Now we'll see the dimensions of role. The dimensions of role ଆମେ ଅନେକ ଗୁଡେ ରୋଲ ପ୍ଲେ କରୁଛେ according to the status ଆଉ ତାହା କେମିତି ଆମକୁ ବେଳେ ବେଳେ ପ୍ରୋବ୍ଲେମ ରେ ପକାଏ ଆମେ ଅନେକ ଗୁଡେ ଷ୍ଟାଟସ ଆମେ ଉପଭୋଗ କରୁଛେ ସମାଜରେ ଜଣେ ଇଣ୍ଡିଭିଜୁଆଲ ଘରେ ଥିଲାବେଳେ ଗୋଟେ ବାପା ହିସାବରେ ଗୋଟେ ଷ୍ଟାଟସ ଏକ ଶିକ୍ଷକ ହିସାବରେ ଗୋଟେ ଷ୍ଟାଟସ କୌଣସି କ୍ଲବ ରେ ଏକ ସେକ୍ରେଟାରୀ ହିସାବରେ ଏକ ଷ୍ଟାଟସ ତ ଅନେକ ଗୁଡେ ଷ୍ଟାଟସ ଯେତେବେଳେ ସେ ଉପଭୋଗ କରୁଛେ according to that status different roles are there ଏବଂ ବେଳେ ବେଳେ এই ମଲ୍ଟିପୁଲ ଷ୍ଟାଟସ ଏବଂ ମଲ୍ଟିପୁଲ ରୋଲ ପ୍ଲେ କଲା ବେଳକୁ ଅନେକ ଗୁଡେ असुविधार सामना କରିବାକୁ ପଡିଥାଏ ଏକ person that is to be discussed multiple roles and rule set according to Mutton one on the so as to distinguish between the concept of multiple role and role set. Let's see in contrast to Linton's theory that each status has a single associated role, Martin argues that each status has an array of roles associated with it. This is what Martin called role set. ଏକ ନିର୍ଦ୍ଦିଷ୍ଟ ଷ୍ଟାଟସ ସହିତ କେବଳ ଗୋଟେ ରୋଲ ନଥାଏ ରାଦର ରୋଲ ସେଟ୍ ଥାଏ ପୁରା it is a complement of role relationship in which persons are involved by virtue of occupying a particular status. Each status has its own role set. Mutton offered the example of a medical student whose status as a student is not only related to teachers but to the roles of the roles of other status occupants like nurses, physicians, social workers, and so on. Martin added that this kind of complex arrangement can also give rise to contradictory expectations of the role partners in the role set. তারপরে multiple roles টা কোন? Multiple roles হচ্ছে যে multiple roles on the other hand refers to the roles associated with the various social statuses of an individual. There is multiple role. We are when multi statuses means multi roles that we are playing. তারপরে রোল সাইন্স ରୋଲ ସାଇନ୍ ସଂକେତ ଏକ ନିର୍ଦ୍ଦିଷ୍ଟ ରୋଲ ସହିତ ଏକ ସଂକେତ ମଧ୍ୟ ଜଡ଼ିତ ଥାଏ ଯାହାକି ଆମେ ମାର୍କ କରିଥିବେ ଯେ ଗୋଟେ ଟ୍ରାଫିକ ପର୍ସନ ରୋଲ ପ୍ଲେ କରୁଛି ଏକ ଟ୍ରାଫିକ ଇନ୍ସପେକ୍ଟର ହିସାବରେ ଏବଂ ତାର ଯୋଉ ଡ୍ରେସଟା ଏକ ନିର୍ଦ୍ଦିଷ୍ଟ ଡ୍ରେସ ତାଙ୍କୁ ଦିଆ ହଉଛି ଯେ ସେମାନେ ହ୍ୱାଇଟ ଡ୍ରେସ ପିନ୍ଧିବେ ଏବଂ ଆମେ ଦେଖିଲା ମାତ୍ରକେ ସେମାନଙ୍କୁ ଆମେ ତାଙ୍କଠୁ ଏକ୍ସପେକ୍ଟ କରୁଛୁ ଯେ ନାଇଁ ଦିସ୍ ପର୍ସନ wearing this particular your cloth is expected to play this role and this particular behavior pattern is expected from him or her. Role sign. Clothing often serves as one of the most important ways to distinguish between men and women in almost all societies. But it is important to ask why we must make this distinction. It is because it works as a sign of differentiate the male and female roles and helps others to anticipate their roles and shape their response accordingly. According to Benton, role sign, जो role सहित attached हुआ sign, role sign help in communications and control and interaction. Role signs act as a way of communications by shaping our relationship, expectations, and interactions. They also help in controlling behavior and checking deviations from the role, both for the individual playing the role and signaling others as well. If such distinguishing signs are totally abandoned, everyday life and activities may become very difficult. The role sign ta ek important role play करे our day to day life रे. In our day to day lives, costumes help in defining the role of the individuals, whether it is a salesperson at a supermarket, ticket collector in a train or traffic, police personnel at a red light. ସବୁ ଜାଗାରେ ଏଇ ରୋଲ ସାଇନ୍ ଟା ଆମକୁ ଅନେକ ଗୁଡ଼ିଏ ସୁବିଧା ଆମକୁ ଆମେ ସୁବିଧାରେ ଜାଣିପାରୁ ଯେ what the roles are attached to that person having that particular costumes ଏବଂ accordingly we expect certain behavior patterns from them. ଏଠି example ମଧ୍ୟ ଦିଆଯାଇଛି ଯେମିତି କି during a traffic jam we often anxiously look for the traffic police identified by a particular uniform and expect him or her to perform the role that is assigned to them. Similarly, in hospital, nurses and doctors each have their unique uniforms that help us in identifying them and setting our expectations. So, role sign help करता है. Then let's see the different sign. Benton identified signs of various roles in terms of basic, general, and independent roles. এই जो sign गुड़ाक संकेत गुड़ाक अच्छी in the form of uniform हो बा अन्य जिनस हो यार केमितिया महत्व रही था in basic rules रे general rules रे independent rules play कला बेले को ए sign रो महत्व का मैं भी देखिवा. The signs SIGN signs for basic rules. Signs for basic roles which are largely determined by the sex, age, and kinship include names, clothes, and your hairstyle. The first names of two sexes are almost distinctive. Titles like Miss, Mrs., Mr., Master also help in identifications of gender, age, and marital status. These are your basic rules. ପାଇଁ ଚିହ୍ନିବା ପାଇଁ ଏଇ ସାଇନ୍ସ ଗୁଡାକ ଆମକୁ ସୁବିଧା ଦେଇଥାଏ. ସାଇନ୍ସ ଫର ଜେନେରାଲ ରୁଲ୍ସ କୋଉଟା ସାଇନ୍ସ ଅଛି ଏମିତି. Science for general rules often depend on the extent to which it is necessary to distinguish and communicate the distinctiveness and relevance of the role for a particular situation as well as for other your role relations. The case of a policeman and his uniform discussed above it's an example of sign for a general role. ଆମେ ଏକ general role play ଯେତେବେଳେ ଜଣେ କରୁଛି ଆମେ ତାର sign କୁ ଦେଖିକି ଆମେ expect କରୁଛୁ no definitely he or she is going to play this your general role. Example of that is your policeman. But in case of a independent role play कला बेलको ए sign मान का तरह तमरा तांकर महत्व रहे नै जेमते कि गोटे फुटबॉल प्लेयर को निया जाओ एसे एक निर्दिष्ट जर्सी से पिंधुची केवल खेलला बेले को से जर्सी रो इंपोर्टेंस रहउची पड़िया बाहर को आसला बेले को नो तार किछि माने रहू नाही सो साइंस पर इंडिपेंडेंट रोल्स रे ए साइंस पर गुरुत्व न थाए since your independent roles have less implications for other roles science for them are limited science for independent roles have relevance only in a particular situation and may lose relevance in most other social situations जैसे एग्जांपल मु कहले for outsiders such science often serve as prestige science ଏବେ ଦେଖିବା role changing we are changing roles in different situation according to the status ଏବଂ ଯୋଉଥିରେ କି ଆମର ଥିବ ଏଥିରେ ରୋଲ କନଫ୍ଲିକ୍ଟ ରାଇଟ୍ ଯୋଉଥିପାଇଁ କି ଆମେ ପ୍ରୋବ୍ଲେମ ହଉଛି ଆମକୁ ଆମେ ବେଲେ ବେଲେ ରୋଲ କନଫ୍ଲିକ୍ଟ ସିଚୁଏସନ ରେ ଆସି ଯାଉଛୁ roles never remain the name the same and keep evolving ଆମର ଭୂମିକା ଚେଞ୍ଜ ସବୁବେଳେ ହେଉଥାଏ according to the status individuals move from one role to another and new roles are added to the old set of roles when a person moves from one role to the other it is important to become familiar with the rights and obligations of the new role ଆମେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଭୂମିକା ପରିବର୍ତ୍ତନ କରୁଛୁ according to the status definitely we should know the rights and obligations of the new role କଣ କରିବା ଉଚିତ କଣ ଆମର ଭୂମିକା ହେବା ଉଚିତ ଏବଂ ସେ ଭୂମିକା ନିର୍ବାହ କରିବାକୁ କଣ କିଛି ଗୋଟେ କେତେ ଗୋଟେ ଅଧିକାର ମଧ୍ୟ ଆମର ରହୁଛି this is important not only for the persons who undergoes role change but also for others who are associated with the persons to modify their behavior and expectations as part of their new role when an individual is about to acquire the role of a wife or a husband it is followed by a ceremony where family friends neighbors and the community take part ଆମେ ରୋଲ ଆମର ଚେଞ୍ଜିଂ ଆମେ ରୋଲ ଅନ୍ୟ ଏକ ରୋଲ କରିଦେଲେ ଆମେ ସୁଇଚ କରୁଛୁ ସେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ ସେ ଜିନିଷଟାକୁ ସମାଜରେ ଅନ୍ୟ ମାନଙ୍କୁ ଦର୍ଶାଇବା ପାଇଁ ଯେ ଏଇ ପର୍ସନଟା ଏକ ନୂଆ ରୋଲ ରେ ଆସିଲା ସେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ ଏକ ସେଲିବ୍ରେସନ ଷ୍ଟାର୍ଟ ହେଇଯାଉଛି when an individual is about to acquire the role of a wife or husband it is followed by a ceremony where family friends neighbors and the community take part ceremonies help in making this change over a critical moment for the individual as well for others ଆମେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ରୋଲ ଆମର ଚେଞ୍ଜ ହଉଛି ଡିଫରେଣ୍ଟ ସିଚୁଏସନ୍ସ ରେ ସେ ପ୍ରତ୍ୟେକ ସମୟରେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ରୋଲ ଚେଞ୍ଜ ହେତେ ହେତେ ଯାଉଛି ଆମେ ସେ ଚେଞ୍ଜିଂ ରୋଲ ସହିତ ଏକ ଆମେ ସେରେମନି ବା ରିଚୁଆଲ୍ସ ଆମେ ସେଠି ରଖୁଛୁ ସୋ ଦ୍ୟାଟ ଅନ୍ୟ ଲୋକମାନେ ଜାଣିବେ ଯେ ନାଇଁ ଦେଖ ରୋଲ ଚେଞ୍ଜ ହେଲା ଏବଂ ଆକର୍ଡିଂଲି ତାଙ୍କ ସହିତ ତାଙ୍କର ଇଣ୍ଟରାକ୍ସନ୍ସ ରହିବ ceremonies help in making this change over a critical moment for the individual as well for others similarly when any person acquires an important positions like of a chairperson of an organization or prime minister or president of a country it is marked by oath taking ceremony এবং এসବୁ କରିବାର ଉଦ୍ଦେଶ୍ୟ କଣ ଯେ ନାଇଁ ଦେଖ ଏ ନୂଆ ଲୋକଟା ଏକ ନୂଆ ଏକ ଷ୍ଟାଟସ ତାକୁ ପାଇଲା according to the status ସେ ନୂଆ ରୋଲ ପ୍ଲେ କରିବ ଏବଂ ଏଇଟା ଆପଣମାନେ ଜାଣନ୍ତୁ ଏବଂ ତା ଅନ୍ୟମାନଙ୍କୁ ଜଣେଇ ଦିଆଯାଏ ଏବଂ accordingly ଏକ ମ୍ୟୁଚୁଆଲ ଏକ ଇଣ୍ଟରଡିପେଣ୍ଡ ଇଣ୍ଟରାକ୍ସନ ତାଙ୍କ ଭିତରେ ଷ୍ଟାର୍ଟ ହେଇଯାଏ ବା ସେ ଯୋଉ ନୂଆ ଯୋଉ ରୋଲ ପ୍ଲେ କରିବ accordingly ଅନ୍ୟମାନେ ତାଙ୍କୁ ସେଇ ସିଚୁଏସନରେ ତାଙ୍କୁ ସେମାନେ କୋଅପରେଟ କରିବେ the change in roles also occurs during the passage from adulthood to old age in many societies the elderly are relieved of their labor intensive tasks and they assume new roles such as taking care of grandchildren while in some societies old people are treated with respect for their experience and wisdom and advice on important matters are sought from them there are some where elderly are treated like invalids ତାପରେ ଦେଖିବା ଯେ ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ଆଧୁନିକ ଜୀବନରେ ଆମେ ଯୋଉ ଅନେକ ଗୁଡେ ରୋଲ ପ୍ଲେ କରୁଛେ ଅନେକ ଗୁଡେ ଷ୍ଟାଟସ ଯୋଉ ଏନ୍ଜୟ କରୁଛେ ସେଇ ରୋଲ ପ୍ଲେ କଲା ବେଳକୁ କେମିତିଆ ରୋଲ କନଫ୍ଲିକ୍ଟ ହେଇଯାଉଛି ଗୋଟେ ବଢିଆ ଏକ୍ସାମ୍ପଲ ଆମେ ଅନେକ ଗୁଡେ ରୋଲ ପ୍ଲେ କରୁଛେ ଅନେକ ଅନେକ ସିଚୁଏସନ୍ସ ଏଠି ଗୋଟେ ଏକ୍ସାମ୍ପଲ ଟେ ଦିଆଯାଇଥିଲା ଯେ ଗୋଟେ 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 ଷ୍ଟୁଡେଣ୍ଟକୁ ନିଆଯାଏ ଯେତେବେଳେ ସେ କ୍ଲାସରେ ତାକୁ ଯେତେବେଳେ ମନିଟର ରୋଲ ତାଙ୍କୁ ଦିଆହଉଛି କ୍ଲାସ ମନିଟର ସେ ଏକ ଷ୍ଟାଟସ ଏନ୍ଜୟ କଲା ସେ କ୍ଲାସ ମନିଟର according to ତାର ରୋଲ ଟା କଣ ହବ ନା ସେ ପିଲାମାନଙ୍କୁ ଡିସିପ୍ଲିନଲି ବସେଇବ ଯୋଉ ପିଲାମାନେ ଉତ୍ପାତ ମଚେଇବେ ତାଙ୍କ ନାଁରେ କମ୍ପ୍ଲେନ କରିବ କିମ୍ବା ଏକ ଶାନ୍ତି ଶୃଙ୍ଖଳା ରକ୍ଷା କରିବା ପାଇଁ ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କୁ ତାଗିଦ କରିବ କିନ୍ତୁ ସେ ଯାହାକୁ ତାଗିଦ କରୁଛି ସେମାନଙ୍କ ଭିତରେ ସେମାନେ କିଛି ତାର ଫ୍ରେଣ୍ଡ ଅଟନ୍ତି ତ ଯେତେବେଳେ ତାଙ୍କ ସହିତ ସେ ଫ୍ରେଣ୍ଡ ହିସାବରେ ଏକ ସେ ରୋଲ ପ୍ଲେ କରିବା କଥା ସେ ସମୟ ତାକୁ ରୋଲ ପ୍ଲେ କରିବାକୁ ପଡୁଛି ଏଜ ଏ ମନିଟର ତ ରୋଲ କନଫ୍ଲିକ୍ଟ ସିଚୁଏସନ ଆସିଯାଉଛି ଏବଂ ସେଥିପାଇଁ ସେ ଟ୍ରେଣ୍ଡରେ ରହୁଛି ହାଉ ଟୁ play this particular two or three roles at a time, ସେତେବେଳେ ସେ ରୋଲ କନଫ୍ଲିକ୍ଟ ଆସୁଛି ଏବଂ ମଣିଷ ଷ୍ଟ୍ରେନରେ ରହୁଛି, ସବୁବେଳେ ଏକ ଚାପରେ ରହୁଛି। ଏବଂ ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ଆଧୁନିକ ସମାଜରେ ଆମେ ଏଇ ପ୍ରକାର ସିଚୁଏସନ୍ସଟା ପ୍ରାୟ କମନ। As a person occupies several statuses and there are multiple roles to be played, sometimes two different statuses of an individual may demand conflicting expectations, placing the individual in a state of dilemma. ଆମେ ଏକ ଦ୍ୱନ୍ଦ୍ୱରେ ପଡ଼ିଯାଉଛି while playing multi role. In everyday life, individuals are often confronted with similar or much more complex dilemma pertaining to their roles. We have already discussed that an individual plays multiple roles in her lifetime and therefore such incompatibility is bound to arise. এবং আধুনিক সমাজରେ ଆମେ ଯେହେତୁ ଅନେକ ଗୁଡ଼ିଏ ରୋଲ ପ୍ଲେ କରୁଛେ ଇନ୍ ଡିଫରେଣ୍ଟ ସିଚୁଏସନ୍ ଇନ୍ ଡିଫରେଣ୍ଟ ଷ୍ଟାଟସେସ୍, ଏମିତି ଏକ ଡିଲେମା ଏବଂ ଷ୍ଟ୍ରେନ୍ ଆସିବା ସ୍ୱାଭାବିକ। A frequently cited example of role conflict is the one experienced by working women who are also married. ଏବଂ ଏହା ତ ୱାର୍କିଂ ଓମେନ୍ ମାନଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ବେଶୀ ଦେଖିବାକୁ ମିଳେ। ଏପଟେ ସେମାନେ ୱାର୍କିଂ ଓମେନ୍ ହିସାବରେ ଅଫିସରେ ଅନେକଟା ତାଙ୍କର ଭୂମିକା ସେମାନେ ନିର୍ବାହ କରିବେ, ଅନେକ ଗୁଡ଼ିଏ କାମ କରିବେ ସେମାନେ, ଏବଂ ଏପଟେ ସେମାନେ ଏକ ମଦର ହିସାବରେ, ଗୋଟେ ଗୃହିଣୀ ହିସାବରେ ତାଙ୍କ ଘର ପାଇଁ ଅନେକ ଗୁଡ଼ିଏ ଦାୟିତ୍ୱ ରହୁଛି। ଇଆଡ଼େ ଘରର ଦାୟିତ୍ୱ କଲା ବେଳକୁ ସେପଟେ କାଳେ ନେଗ୍ଲେକ୍ଟ ହେଇଯିବ, ନାଇଁ ସେଟା କଲା ବେଳକୁ ଇଆଡ଼େ ଘର କାଳେ ନେଗ୍ଲେକ୍ଟ ହେଇଯିବ। ଏଇ ଦୋ ଛକିରେ ସେମାନେ ଅନେକ ଗୁଡ଼ିଏ ଷ୍ଟ୍ରେନ୍ ରହୁଛନ୍ତି। ତ ଅନେକଟା ରୋଲ ପ୍ଲେ କଲା ବେଳକୁ ଏ କନଫ୍ଲିକ୍ଟ ସିଚୁଏସନ ରାଇଜ କରୁଛି, ଯୋଉଥିପାଇଁ କି ଏକ ଷ୍ଟ୍ରେନ୍ ଡେଭଲପ କରୁଛି। A frequently cited example of role conflict is the one experienced by working women who are also married. In traditional societies, uh, the culturally accepted role of women were largely related to child rearing and household chores. However, in modern societies, these roles are being challenged and women are increasingly entering full-time salaried employment and sharing professional workspace with men. When such social changes takes place, a woman may experience a pull from both your both sides, her commitment of her works and professional and her commitment towards the family. So age of commitment towards your professions, commitment towards your family, a particular situations रे एक role conflict arise କରୁଛି ଏବଂ ତା ଅନେକ ଗୁଡ଼ିଏ problem ସୃଷ୍ଟି କରୁଛି। Such conflicts arise when and especially because the role of partners may not accept and reorient themselves to the fact that women are remaking their roles or adopting new ones. While role conflict takes place between role associated with a two different statuses of an individual, role strain is experienced. ସେଥିପାଇଁ role strains ଆମେ ଆମର ଦୈନନ୍ଦିନ ଜୀବନରେ ଆମେ experience କରୁଛୁ when different responsibilities associated within a single status are incompatible. For example, if Rohit has to prepare for an exam that is next day, but has to also represent his school in an inter-school chess competition on the same day. Role conflict and role strain ଆମେ experience କରୁଛୁ. As a student, he might experience stress and anxiety because he has to perform well in both the situations. So commitment to different rules as per the statuses at a time, ଯାହାକି ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ଅର୍ବାନ ସେଟଅପରେ ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ କମ୍ପ୍ଲେକ୍ସ ସୋସାଇଟିଜରେ ଏହା ଏକ ରୋଲ ଷ୍ଟ୍ରେନ୍ କ୍ରିଏଟ୍ କରୁଛି। People try to manage role conflict by role compartmentalizations or separations, where they try to keep what they do in one role distinct from what they do in the another, and giving priority to one role over the other. Concepts of role strain and conflicts are important to understand. Role exist as they can also give rise to doubt about one particular role eventually lead to exist. So this is all for today, dear students. Any queries, please? Any question from your side, dear students, dear learners? So it's here I concluded my session for your unit 9 and unit 10. Panigray sir, can you hear me, sir? So
Good morning, sir.
good morning, good morning. Any queries?
ସାର୍ ଜାନୁଆରୀ ମାସଠୁ ଆଡମିସନ ମୋର ହେଲାଣି ତ ବୁକ୍ ଏ ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ମିଳିନି ସାର୍।
ଇଟ୍ସ ଅଲ୍ ରାଇଟ୍। ଯେତେବେଳେ କାଲି ଆପଣ ଇଏ କରିବେ, ପାଣିଗ୍ରାହୀ ସାର୍ ଥିବେ, ଡକ୍ଟର ପାଣିଗ୍ରାହୀ will be there। ସୋ ସେଇଠି ଆମେ ଏଇ କଥାଟାକୁ ଟିକେ ଆରମ୍ଭରୁ ଡିସ୍କସ୍ କରିଦେବେ। ଇଟ୍ସ ଅଲ୍ ରାଇଟ୍। ସେଠି ଏହାକୁ ସର୍ଟ ଆଉଟ୍ କରାଯାଇ ପାରିବ। ଠିକ ଅଛି, ଏହାକୁ ଆମେ
ହଁ ସାର୍। ସେ
ଆସନ୍ତା କରିଦେବେ।
ମର୍ଣ୍ଣିଂ ରେ ନା ଇଭିନିଂ ରେ ଯୋଉ କ୍ଲାସ ହଉଛି ସାର୍?
ନାଇଁ, ମୁଁ ଯୋଉ କ୍ଲାସ କରିବି କାଲି ପୁଣି ଆମର ଏକ୍ଜାକ୍ଟଲି 9 to 11 ଯୋଉ କ୍ଲାସଟା ଅଛି, ଏଇ
ହଁ
ଆମର
ହଁ ସାର୍।
ସେଇ ସମୟରେ ଏଟାକୁ ଆମେ ଡିସ୍କସ୍ କରିବା। ପାଣିଗ୍ରାହୀ ସାର୍ will be there। So students,
ହଁ ହଉ।
it's okay for today। So ଆମେ କାଲି ପୁଣି ସେମ୍ ଟାଇମ୍ 9 to 11 ପୁଣି ଅନ୍ୟ ଏକ ଅନ୍ୟ ୟୁନିଟ୍ସ ନେଇକି ଆମେ ଆରମ୍ଭ କରିବେ। So let's have a good day। Thank you।